Welcome, traveler, to the sacred treasure. If these words find you, they were always meant to. You are here, not by chance, but by a quiet orchestration of life itself, a gentle tug of the unseen, pulling you deeper into your own remembering. As you listen, allow the noise of the world to soften. Allow your breath to find its rhythm. And if what unfolds within these moments awakens something in you, a stirring, a knowing, I invite you to honor that resonance. Like this offering, share your journey in the comments and walk with us in this circle of light. Reality does not happen to you, it happens from you. Stay until the end, and you will remember why every reflection you see, every heartbreak, every blessing, every unanswered prayer has been the mirror of what you dared to feel. Introduction. Close your eyes and imagine this. You are standing before an ancient mirror, older than the stars, older than time itself. Its surface is alive, shimmering like liquid glass, and as you gaze into it, you begin to realize it does not reflect your face. It reflects your frequency. This is the secret most have forgotten. The universe is not listening to the words you speak, nor the prayers you recite. It listens only to the vibration you carry. It speaks the language of feeling, and in its silence, it returns to you precisely what you radiate. Every desire you have ever whispered to the night sky, every fear you've tried to bury beneath logic and noise, every unspoken belief resting beneath your heartbeat. They are seeds. And the mirror of life does not judge them. It simply reflects them faithfully, without distortion. If your heart beats with lack, the mirror cannot show you abundance. If your frequency trembles with doubt, the reflection cannot hold certainty. And yet, if you dare to feel the fullness of what you seek before it arrives, the mirror has no choice but to return it to you. The sages of every age knew this. From the Hermetic teachings etched into Egyptian stone to the whispered parables of Christ, from the Vedic hymns sung beneath the banyan trees to the quantum field described by modern physics, they all point to the same luminous truth. You are not inside the universe. The universe is inside you. The mirror field is not a place outside of you. It is a living, breathing law. Every thought clothed in emotion becomes a magnetic pulse, rippling into the unseen, calling back to you everything that matches its song. This is why two people can walk the same street, under the same sky, and live in two entirely different worlds. But here is where most become lost. They believe they must do more to attract more. They chase external strategies, forgetting that the mirror does not care about effort, only essence. You cannot trick the reflection. You cannot speak abundance and secretly cradle unworthiness. The glass is honest. Always. And yet, this is not a warning. This is liberation. Because the moment you remember that life is reflecting what you feel, you awaken to the most divine of powers, the ability to shift worlds without moving a single stone. The journey we begin together now is not about forcing the universe into compliance. It is about learning to speak its native tongue, frequency. It is about opening the sacred door between intention and embodiment, between longing and receiving, and perhaps, most importantly, it is about remembering that you are not broken, you are not behind, you are not separate from the life you desire. Everything you seek is already pulsing within you, waiting for the moment you dare to feel it real. So, breathe. Allow these words to settle not just in your mind, but in your bones. You stand at the threshold of the mirror. On the other side, everything you've been waiting for is already waiting for you. And now, we step through together. Chapter 1. The Glass Between Worlds. In the quantum cathedral of consciousness, where thoughts crystallize into matter and dreams pulse with the heartbeat of creation, there stands an invisible barrier that most souls never recognize. A gossamer veil woven from the threads of forgotten feeling, separating the world of possibility from the world of experience. This is the glass between worlds, transparent yet impermeable to those who have not learned its secret. It is not made of silicon or crystal, but of crystallized emotion, of feelings turned solid through repetition and reinforced through belief. And like any glass, it reflects back exactly what stands before it, showing you not what you want to see, but what you truly are at the level of pure feeling. Sarah Chen discovered this truth on a Tuesday morning that felt like every other Tuesday morning in her 34 years of existence. She sat in her cramped studio apartment, surrounded by bills she couldn't pay and dreams that seemed to mock her from their gilded frames on the wall. Her business had failed. Again. Her relationships had crumbled. Again. And the universe seemed determined to serve her the same bitter dish of disappointment, seasoned with just enough hope to make the next failure sting even more. But on this particular Tuesday, as she stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror while brushing her teeth, something shifted. The woman looking back at her wasn't just tired, she was emanating tiredness. She wasn't just worried about money, she was radiating the frequency of lack so intensely that it seemed to bend the very air around her. For the first time in her life, Sarah truly saw herself as the universe saw her. A walking, breathing transmission tower broadcasting the signal of struggle and receiving back exactly that signal, amplified and objectified in her external world. This recognition, this sudden seeing through the glass between worlds, is the first awakening that every conscious soul must experience. The understanding that there is no out there, out there. There is only the inner landscape of your emotional being, projected outward through the cosmic projector of consciousness and displayed on the screen of space and time. The ancient Hermetic axiom, as within, so without, is not poetry, it is physics. It is the fundamental law that governs how consciousness translates the invisible realm of feeling into the visible realm of form. The glass between worlds is the mechanism by which this translation occurs, and you are both the projectionist and the audience, the broadcaster and the receiver, the artist and the canvas. But here lies the profound mystery that most spiritual teachings miss. The glass is not neutral. It does not simply reflect, it amplifies. It takes the emotional signature of your being and broadcasts it across the quantum field with such intensity that the universe has no choice but to mirror it back to you in physical form. This is why positive thinking alone is never enough. Thoughts without corresponding feelings are like radio signals. Without amplitude, they exist, but they do not transmit. The universe responds to the feeling tone beneath your thoughts, the emotional frequency that colors your inner world. And this frequency is not something you have, it is something you are. You do not possess feelings, you are a feeling being, temporarily focused through the lens of a human nervous system. Consider the mirror in your bedroom. When you stand before it, it does not judge whether you are having a good hair day or a bad one. It does not decide to show you a more flattering reflection based on your hopes or a more critical one based on your fears. It simply reflects, with perfect fidelity, the reality that stands before it. The glass between worlds operates on the same principle, but with one crucial difference. It reflects not your physical appearance, but your emotional essence, your feeling tone, the vibrational signature of your innermost being. This is why two people can take the same action, start the same business, pursue the same relationship, invest in the same opportunity, and receive completely different results. They are broadcasting different emotional frequencies through their actions. One person starts their business from a feeling of excitement and possibility. The other starts from desperation and fear of failure. The universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, reflects back experiences that match these feeling tones, regardless of the surface similarities in their actions. The glass between worlds reveals itself most clearly in the patterns of your life. Look closely at the recurring themes, the repetitive situations, the types of people who consistently appear in your story. These are not coincidences or strokes of luck or manifestations of some external fate. They are your inner world made visible, your emotional climate objectified in the weather patterns of your experience. If you find yourself repeatedly attracting financial struggle, examine not your business strategies or investment choices, but the feeling tone you carry about money itself. If relationships consistently end in betrayal or abandonment, investigate not the flaws of your partners, but the emotional frequency you broadcast about love and worthiness. The glass between worlds is showing you, with crystalline clarity, the vibration you are emitting at the deepest level of your being. But here is where hope emerges from the heart of this revelation. If the glass can only reflect what you truly feel, then changing what you feel must change what you see. The mirror field is not a prison, it is a classroom. Every reflection, pleasant or painful, is information. Every experience, wanted or unwanted, is feedback about the emotional frequency you are currently broadcasting. The spiritual masters of every tradition understood this truth. Buddha spoke of it as the law of karma, not as punishment or reward from some cosmic judge, but as the inevitable reflection of consciousness back to itself. Jesus taught it in the principle that, as you believe, so it is done unto you, recognizing that belief is not mental but emotional, not intellectual but felt. The Vedic seers encoded it in the understanding that samskaras, the impressions we carry in consciousness, must manifest as experiences in the phenomenal world. And Neville Goddard, perhaps more than any modern teacher, grasped the mechanism by which this reflection occurs. He understood that imagination is not fantasy, but the very substance of reality, and that when imagination is fused with feeling, it creates what he called the pearl of great price, the emotional state that the universe must reflect back as experience. Sacred practice, the transparency meditation. Right now, as you listen to these words, become aware of the feeling tone that lives beneath your conscious thoughts. Not what you think about your life, but how you feel about it at the most fundamental level. Close your eyes and imagine that you are made of transparent glass and that your core emotional frequency is a light shining from within you, coloring everything you touch with its unique hue. What color is your inner light right now? What feeling tone are you broadcasting to the mirror field of existence? Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Yet simply observe it with the compassionate curiosity of a scientist studying a fascinating phenomenon. This is your current signature in the quantum field of consciousness. This is what the glass between worlds is reflecting back to you as your life experience. And now that you can see it clearly, now that you understand how the mirror works, you have taken the first step toward changing not just what you do, but who you are at the level where reality is actually created. The glass between worlds stands ready to show you whatever you choose to become. The only question is, what feeling will you choose to be? Chapter 2. The Secret Language of Feeling. In the beginning was the Word, says the ancient scripture, but what the mystics knew, and what modern consciousness has forgotten, is that the Word was not spoken in syllables or sentences. It was felt. The creative force that birthed galaxies and shaped atoms speaks in a vocabulary older than language, more precise than mathematics, more powerful than any technology ever conceived by human minds. This is the secret language of feeling, the mother tongue of manifestation, the divine dialect that the universe uses to translate consciousness into creation. Every feeling is a word in this cosmic vocabulary. Every emotion is a command sent into the quantum field of infinite possibility. And the universe, being the perfect listener that it is, responds to every word you speak in this sacred language with the same unwavering attention that a computer responds to code or a piano responds to the touch of a master musician's fingers. But here lies the great tragedy of the modern age. Most human beings have become illiterate in their own native tongue. They speak the language of feeling unconsciously, carelessly, broadcasting chaotic messages into the field, and then wondering why their lives unfold in seemingly random, disappointing ways. They are like poets who have forgotten how to read, writers who have lost the ability to understand their own words. Marcus Rodriguez learned this truth the hard way. For 15 years, he had built what appeared to be a successful career in real estate, accumulating properties and profits while maintaining the image of prosperity that his industry demanded. But beneath the surface confidence, beneath the designer suits and luxury car, Marcus carried a feeling that he had inherited from his immigrant father, a bone-deep conviction that money was scarce, that success was temporary, that any moment the other shoe would drop and reveal his achievements to be nothing more than an elaborate house of cards. Marcus thought he was being smart by saving every penny, by over-insuring everything he owned, by maintaining multiple backup plans for his backup plans. But what he didn't realize was that every precaution he took was a word spoken in the language of fear. Every defensive action was a sentence describing lack and limitation to the universe that was always listening, always ready to reflect back whatever story he told through his feelings. The crash came, as crashes always do, precisely when and how his deepest feelings had been describing it, not through external market forces or unforeseeable circumstances, but through the perfect orchestration of events that could only occur when someone has been unconsciously broadcasting the frequency of financial insecurity for years. The universe, speaking back to Marcus in the same language he had been using, manifested a reality that matched his emotional truth rather than his conscious desires. This is the secret that spiritual teachers often miss when they speak of manifestation. The universe does not respond to your words, your affirmations, your visualizations, or even your actions. It responds to the feeling tone underneath all of these surface activities. It reads the emotional signature that you carry in the depths of your being and reflects back experiences that match that signature with breathtaking precision. Think of feeling as the operating system of reality itself. Just as your computer responds to code written in binary, endless strings of ones and zeros, the universe responds to the binary language of feeling. Expansion or contraction, love or fear, abundance or lack, worthiness or unworthiness. Every emotion you experience is a complex combination of these fundamental frequencies, and every combination creates a unique vibrational blueprint that the quantum field must match in physical form. The ancient mystics understood this language intimately. In the Vedic tradition, they spoke of bhava, the feeling state that must accompany any spiritual practice for it to bear fruit. The Sufi masters taught that the heart must be polished until it becomes a perfect mirror, capable of reflecting divine qualities through pure feeling. The Kabbalists wrote of the Sephirot, divine emanations that flow from the source of creation through various feeling qualities before manifesting as physical reality. But perhaps no teacher understood this language more clearly than Neville Goddard, who spent his life teaching others how to feel their way into their desired realities. Neville recognized that imagination without feeling is sterile, that visualization without emotional engagement is merely mental masturbation. He taught that the key to conscious creation lies not in thinking your way to your desires, but in feeling your way into them, in cultivating the emotional state that would naturally accompany the fulfillment of your deepest longings. The secret language of feeling operates through what we might call vibrational syntax, specific combinations of emotional frequencies that create coherent messages in the quantum field. Just as human languages have grammar rules that determine meaning, the language of feeling has its own syntax that determines manifestation. For instance, the feeling of gratitude combined with expectancy creates a different vibrational message than gratitude combined with surprise. Gratitude expectancy says to the universe, "I am thankful for what is coming because I know it is already mine." Gratitude surprise says, "I am thankful for what has come because I never expected to receive it." The first creates a reality of continuous flow and inevitable manifestation. The second creates a reality of sporadic gifts and unexpected windfalls. Similarly, the feeling of desire combined with certainty speaks a different language than desire combined with desperation. Desire certainty communicates, "I want this because I know I can have it." Desire desperation broadcasts, "I want this because I lack it and fear I may never get it." The universe, being the perfect mirror that it is, reflects back experiences that match these distinct emotional messages. This is why two people can perform identical manifestation practices, say the same affirmations, visualize the same outcomes, take the same inspired actions, and receive completely different results. They are speaking different dialects of the feeling language. One person's visualization is infused with the feeling tone of certainty and worthiness. The other's is colored by doubt and desperation. The universe responds to the feeling beneath the technique, not the technique itself. The most fluent speakers of this sacred language understand that every moment offers them the opportunity to choose their words carefully. They know that feelings are not things that happen to them, but languages they choose to speak. They become conscious of the emotional stories they are telling the universe through their inner experience, and they take responsibility for editing those stories until they align with their deepest desires. But here is where many seekers make a crucial mistake. They try to force positive feelings, to paste happy emotions over genuine concerns, to lie to themselves in the language of feeling. This never works because the universe reads not the surface feeling, but the authentic feeling beneath it. Forced positivity, mixed with underlying doubt, creates a confused message that manifests as confusing experiences. The universe reflects back not what you pretend to feel, but what you actually feel at the deepest level of your being. True mastery of this language requires what we might call emotional authenticity, the willingness to feel whatever you are genuinely feeling while consciously choosing to evolve those feelings toward greater alignment with your desires. It means acknowledging your current emotional truth while gently, persistently, lovingly shifting your inner climate toward the feeling states that match your highest vision for your life. Sacred practice, the feeling vocabulary. For the next few minutes, become a student of your own emotional language. Close your eyes and scan your inner landscape, noticing the various feelings that are currently active within you. Don't judge them or try to change them. Simply observe them as if you were a linguist studying a fascinating foreign language. Now, imagine that each feeling you identify is a word that you are constantly speaking to the universe. What story are your current feelings telling? What reality are they describing to the cosmic mirror that surrounds you? If the universe could only respond to the feeling words you are speaking right now, what kind of experiences would it create for you? Choose one feeling that you would like to speak more fluently. Perhaps love, gratitude, excitement, confidence, or peace. Spend a few moments cultivating that feeling not as a mental concept, but as a lived experience in your body. Feel it in your chest, your belly, your limbs. Let it become as real and tangible as your physical breath. This is how you learn to speak the secret language of feeling consciously and deliberately. This is how you become a poet in the cosmic tongue that creates worlds. Chapter 3. The frequency you forgot. In the infinite orchestra of creation, where planets hum their orbital songs and atoms dance to quantum rhythms, there exists one frequency that most souls have forgotten how to play. The original tone of their being, the unique vibrational signature they carried before the world taught them to sing other people's songs. This is the frequency you forgot, the authentic resonance of your consciousness before it learned to harmonize with limitation, fear, and the collective amnesia of human conditioning. Every soul enters this realm, vibrating at the frequency of pure possibility. Children know this frequency intimately. It is the vibration that allows them to believe in magic, to expect miracles, to feel worthy of love and abundance without needing to earn or prove their deserving. But somewhere between the playground and the paycheck, between fairy tales and financial statements, most souls forget how to access this original frequency and begin broadcasting from the lower octaves of survival, scarcity, and social programming. Elena Vasquez remembered her frequency by accident, or what she would later understand was divine appointment disguised as chance. She had been battling chronic pain for 7 years, cycling through doctors and treatments and medications that promised relief but delivered only temporary distractions from the symphony of suffering that had become her daily existence. Her body had become a prison, her future a question mark, her dreams a luxury she could no longer afford to entertain. But on a rain-soaked Thursday evening, while sorting through boxes in her grandmother's attic, Elena discovered something that would change not just her health, but her entire understanding of reality itself. A journal written in her grandmother's hand, documenting her own journey from terminal illness to complete healing through what she called finding the song I was born to sing. The journal spoke of frequency not as metaphor, but as medicine. Not as New Age fantasy, but as ancient science rediscovered through desperate necessity. Elena's grandmother had learned through her own dark night of the body that every soul carries within it a unique vibrational pattern, a cosmic fingerprint that, when accessed and sustained, aligns every cell every organ, every system with its highest potential for health, abundance, and joy. This is the frequency you forgot. Not just your personal vibration, but your original vibration. The tone you resonated before trauma taught you to harmonize with pain. Before disappointment trained you to expect failure. Before society programmed you to broadcast from the frequencies of fear and limitation. It is the frequency of your soul's true nature, the authentic resonance of your consciousness before it learned to wear the masks that others found acceptable. The ancient mystery schools understood this forgotten frequency intimately. In Egyptian temples, initiates were taught to access their Ka, the immortal aspect of self that vibrated at the frequency of divine essence. Greek philosophers spoke of the music of the spheres, recognizing that every soul had its own note in the cosmic symphony, and that illness, poverty, and suffering arose when one fell out of tune with this original tone. Hindu and Buddhist traditions developed sophisticated practices for attuning consciousness to what they called svasvara, one's own unique sound, the personal mantra that existed before any mantra was taught. But perhaps the most profound understanding of this forgotten frequency comes from the quantum insights of modern physics, which reveal that everything in existence, from subatomic particles to galactic clusters, exists as vibrating energy in various states of frequency. What we experience as solid matter is simply energy vibrating slowly enough to appear stable to our senses. What we call consciousness is energy vibrating at frequencies so rapid that they transcend the limitations of space and time. This means that when you remember your original frequency, when you align with the vibration you carried before the world taught you to sing other songs, you do not simply change your thoughts or feelings. You literally shift the fundamental resonance of your being, which in turn shifts the vibrational patterns that your consciousness projects into the quantum field of possibility. The universe, responding to this authentic frequency, begins to mirror back experiences that match your soul's true nature, rather than the learned frequencies of limitation you have been unconsciously broadcasting. Neville Goddard understood this principle deeply, though he expressed it in the language of his era rather than quantum terminology. He taught that every soul has a state of consciousness that represents its natural dwelling place, the emotional vibrational frequency from which its truest desires arise and in which its greatest fulfillment exists. He called the process of remembering this state returning to the Father's house, recognizing that the journey back to authentic self is simultaneously a journey back to unlimited creative power. The tragedy of human conditioning is that most people spend their entire lives broadcasting from learned frequencies rather than their authentic ones. They vibrate at the frequency their parents taught them through example, the frequency their culture reinforced through repetition, the frequency their experiences seem to validate through manifestation. They become so skilled at harmonizing with limitation that they forget they ever knew any other song. A businessman broadcasts from the frequency of hustle and competition because his father taught him that success requires struggle, never remembering that his soul's authentic frequency might be one of effortless creation and joyful collaboration. A woman vibrates at the frequency of romantic disappointment because past relationships reinforce the belief that love is conditional and temporary, forgetting that her original frequency was one of unconditional lovability and eternal connection. The path back to your forgotten frequency requires what mystics have called the great unlearning, the conscious process of recognizing which aspects of your current vibrational pattern are authentic to your soul and which are simply habits acquired through conditioning. It demands the courage to feel your way back to who you were before the world told you who you should be, to remember the dreams you dreamed before reality taught you to dream smaller. But here lies the profound mystery. Your forgotten frequency is never actually lost. It continues to vibrate in the deepest chambers of your being like a cosmic tuning fork, always available to guide you back to resonance with your true nature. Every moment of joy you experience is a moment of remembering this frequency. Every flash of inspiration, every surge of love, every instant of profound peace is your soul's way of reminding you of the song you came here to sing. The universe itself conspires to help you remember. Every person who inspires you carries some aspect of your forgotten frequency in their vibration. Every experience that brings you alive reflects some quality of your authentic resonance. Every dream that refuses to die despite years of disappointment is your soul's persistent attempt to tune you back to your original frequency. Children serve as living reminders of this forgotten vibration. In their uninhibited joy, their fearless creativity, their effortless magnetism for love and wonder, they broadcast from frequencies that most adults have learned to suppress. This is why spending time with children often feels healing and inspiring. They remind us of the vibrational states that we once knew as natural before the world taught us that such frequencies were unrealistic or inappropriate. The key to remembering your forgotten frequency lies not in thinking your way back to it, but in feeling your way back to it. It requires developing the sensitivity to distinguish between emotions that feel authentic to your soul and emotions that feel learned or imposed. It demands the willingness to follow the trail of joy back to its source, to honor the whispers of excitement that arise when you contemplate certain possibilities, to trust the inner resonance that says, "Yes, this is me," even when external evidence suggests otherwise. Sacred practice, the frequency archaeology. Close your eyes and take a journey backward through time, not to relive memories, but to rediscover frequencies. Think of a moment in your childhood when you felt completely alive, utterly yourself, totally in harmony with existence. It might have been while playing, creating, exploring, or simply being in nature. Feel your way into that memory, not as a mental exercise, but as a vibrational experience. What did joy feel like in your body before you learned to question whether you deserved it? What did excitement feel like before you learned to temper it with doubt? What did love feel like before you learned to protect yourself from it? This is archaeological work at the level of consciousness, digging through layers of learned limitation to uncover the authentic frequency that still vibrates at the core of your being. Spend a few minutes simply resonating with this forgotten vibration, letting it remind your cells and your soul of the song they were born to sing. Now, carry this frequency forward into your present awareness. This is not nostalgia. This is remembrance. This is not regression. This is reclamation. You are not going backward. You are going inward, to the timeless frequency that has been waiting patiently for your return. Chapter 4. When the heart leads, the mirror opens. In the sacred anatomy of manifestation, where consciousness meets creation and dreams take physical form, there exists one chamber that holds the master key to unlock every door that stands between you and your deepest desires. This is not the mind, though the mind believes itself supreme. This is not the will, though the will claims dominion over destiny. This is the heart, Not the physical organ that pumps blood through your veins, but the cosmic organ that pumps feeling through the quantum field of infinite possibility. When the heart leads, when feeling becomes the primary navigational system for consciousness, the mirror field of existence opens like a flower to the sun, revealing pathways that were always present but invisible to those who navigate through thought alone. The heart knows languages that the mind has never learned, sees dimensions that logic cannot perceive, and possesses keys to doors that intellect cannot even find. The heart is the only organ capable of authentic feeling, and authentic feeling is the only currency that the universe accepts in exchange for manifestation. Everything else, thoughts, words, actions, techniques, are secondary phenomena that derive their creative power from the feeling states of the heart. When the heart leads, the entire cosmic banking system opens its vaults and says, "Yes, you have unlimited credit in the realm of possibility." David Kim discovered this truth during the darkest period of his entrepreneurial journey, when 3 consecutive business failures had left him not only financially bankrupt, but spiritually depleted. He had always prided himself on being strategic, analytical, data-driven in his approach to success. His business plans were meticulous, his market research exhaustive, his execution flawless. Yet somehow, despite doing everything right according to conventional wisdom, the universe kept returning his efforts with interest in the form of spectacular failures. It was during a meditation retreat in the mountains of Colorado, when David had exhausted every mental solution and surrendered to a kind of spiritual desperation, that he experienced what he later called the opening of the heart-mind. Sitting in silence, watching the sunrise paint the peaks in shades of gold and rose, David felt something shift in the center of his chest. Not a physical sensation, but a dimensional opening, as if a door had been unlocked in a room he never knew existed. Through this opening came a flood of feeling that had nothing to do with his business strategies or financial goals, and everything to do with a pure desire to serve, to create beauty, to contribute something meaningful to the human experience. For the first time in years, David felt his way into his entrepreneurial dreams rather than thinking his way toward them. And what he discovered changed not just his approach to business, but his entire understanding of how creation actually works. The heart possesses what we might call quantum intuition, the ability to feel into future possibilities and navigate directly toward those that hold the greatest alignment with your soul's purpose. While the mind can only process information that already exists, the heart can sense potentials that have not yet manifested, feel into realities that exist in the quantum field of possibility, and choose the path that leads to the most joyful expression of your authentic self. This quantum intuition operates through what ancient mystics called the language of the heart, a feeling-based communication system that connects your individual consciousness with the cosmic intelligence that orchestrates all manifestation. When you learn to feel your way through life, rather than think your way through life, you tap into this cosmic intelligence and begin to move with the same effortless precision that guides birds during migration or flowers toward the light. The heart's primary wisdom lies in its ability to distinguish between desires that arise from the soul's authentic longing and desires that arise from the ego's attempts to fill psychological wounds or social expectations. The mind cannot make this distinction because it processes all desires as equal and attempts to manifest them through the same mechanical approaches. But the heart knows immediately which desires carry the frequency of life force and which carry the frequency of compensation. Soul-based desires feel expansive in the heart, creating a sense of aliveness and possibility that energizes the entire being. They arise from love, creativity, service, growth, and the natural impulse to express your unique gifts in the world. When you contemplate fulfilling these desires, your heart opens, your breath deepens, and your entire nervous system says yes to the possibility. Ego-based desires feel contractive in the heart, creating a sense of urgency and anxiety that depletes your energy even as you pursue them. They arise from fear, lack, comparison, and the compulsive need to prove your worth or heal old wounds through external achievement. When you contemplate these desires, your heart closes slightly, your breath becomes shallow, and your nervous system enters a state of chronic stress and striving. The universe responds to these different types of desires with different types of manifestation. Soul-based desires manifest through synchronicity, flow, and what appear to be miraculous coincidences, but are actually the natural result of aligning with the cosmic current of creation. Ego-based desires manifest through struggle, competition, and the kind of exhausting effort that may produce results but never produces fulfillment. Neville Goddard understood this distinction deeply, though he expressed it in different terminology. He taught that imagination must be wedded to love, that the feeling of the wish fulfilled must arise from a place of genuine affection for the desired outcome rather than desperate need for it. He recognized that the heart is the bridge between imagination and manifestation, the organ that transforms mental concepts into feeling realities that the universe can mirror back as experience. When the heart leads, manifestation becomes an act of love rather than a strategy for acquisition. You begin to desire things not because you lack them, but because you love them. You pursue goals not to escape your current reality, but to express more of your authentic nature. You create not from emptiness seeking fulfillment, but from fullness seeking expression. This heart-led approach to manifestation requires what we might call emotional courage, the willingness to feel your way into unknown territories, to trust the intelligence of your heart even when it contradicts the calculations of your mind, to follow the thread of joy even when it leads you away from conventional definitions of success. The heart's wisdom often appears irrational to the mind. It might guide you to leave a lucrative career, to pursue a creative passion, to move to a new city based on a feeling rather than a job offer, to invest in a relationship that makes no sense on paper but feels like coming home. The mind resists these heart-led choices because they cannot be justified through logical analysis or guaranteed through strategic planning. But when you have the courage to follow your heart's guidance, when you allow feeling to become your primary GPS for navigating through life, you discover that the universe has been waiting for you to make this shift. Suddenly, doors open that you never knew existed. Resources appear from unexpected sources. People enter your life who seem to have been sent by some cosmic casting director. Opportunities unfold with a sense of perfect timing that could never be orchestrated by human planning alone. The mirror field of existence responds to heart-led consciousness with what can only be described as cosmic collaboration. Instead of feeling like you are pushing against a resistant universe, you begin to feel like you are dancing with a responsive partner who anticipates your every move and supports your every step toward greater joy and authentic expression. Sacred practice, opening the heart-mind. Place one hand on your heart and close your eyes. Breathe deeply into the space beneath your palm, imagining that you are breathing directly into your heart rather than your lungs. With each breath, feel your heart expanding, opening, becoming more spacious and receptive. Now, bring to mind a desire or goal that you have been trying to manifest through mental effort and strategic planning. Instead of thinking about this desire, feel into it. Ask your heart, what does this desire feel like when it arises from love rather than lack? What does it feel like when it comes from fullness rather than emptiness? Notice the difference between the heart's response to your desire and the mind's approach to it. The heart might reveal aspects of your desire that you had never considered, or it might show you that what you thought you wanted was actually a symbol for something deeper that your soul truly longs to experience. Allow your heart to become your primary consultant for this desire. Let it guide you toward the actions, people, and opportunities that feel aligned with the loving essence of what you want to create. Trust the intelligence of your heart to lead you toward manifestation through love rather than effort, through alignment rather than force. Chapter 5. The Law That Cannot Be Broken. In the infinite library of cosmic principles, where the fundamental laws of existence are written in the language of pure mathematics and divine poetry, there stands one law that towers above all others. Not in importance, for all cosmic laws are equally vital, but in its absolute, uncompromising, unchangeable nature. This is the law of reflection, the cosmic mirror principle that ensures the universe can never, under any circumstances, give you anything other than a perfect reflection of your inner emotional state. This law is not a spiritual philosophy to be debated or a metaphysical theory to be contemplated. It is as fundamental to the architecture of reality as gravity is to the movement of planets, as immutable as the speed of light, as reliable as the mathematical constants that hold atoms together and keep galaxies spinning in their cosmic dance. You cannot break this law, you cannot bypass it, you cannot negotiate with it or find exceptions to it. You can only learn to work with it consciously or remain subject to its workings unconsciously. The law of reflection operates with such precision that it makes a Swiss chronometer look crude by comparison. Every feeling you feel, every emotional state you embody, every vibrational frequency you broadcast is met by the universe with mathematical exactitude. Not approximately, not eventually, not when conditions are favorable, immediately, perfectly, and without exception. Dr. Patricia Reeves, a quantum physicist who had spent 30 years studying the deepest mysteries of subatomic reality, discovered this law not in her laboratory, but in the wreckage of her personal life. Despite her brilliant scientific mind and prestigious academic position, Patricia's relationships consistently ended in abandonment. Her financial situation remained perpetually precarious, and her health declined steadily despite having access to the best medical care available. The breakthrough came during a particularly dark period when Patricia found herself alone on Christmas Eve, having been abandoned by yet another partner who claimed she was emotionally unavailable and impossible to connect with. In her desperation, Patricia decided to apply the same rigorous scientific methodology she used in her physics research to the patterns in her personal life. What she discovered shocked her more than any quantum experiment ever had. For 3 decades, Patricia had been unconsciously broadcasting the emotional frequency of abandonment, a deep, cellular conviction that people would ultimately leave her, that she had inherited from childhood experiences and reinforced through years of intellectual detachment as a survival strategy. The universe, following the law of reflection with absolute fidelity, had been perfectly mirroring this inner conviction back to her through every relationship, every career opportunity, every health challenge. The law of reflection reveals itself most clearly in the recurring patterns of your life. Those themes and situations that appear again and again despite your conscious efforts to create different outcomes. These patterns are not random occurrences or strokes of bad luck or manifestations of some external fate working against you. They are the universe showing you, with crystalline clarity, the emotional frequencies you are consistently broadcasting from the depths of your being. If you find yourself repeatedly experiencing financial struggle, the law of reflection is showing you that somewhere in your consciousness, you are carrying and broadcasting the frequency of financial insecurity. If relationships consistently end in disappointment or betrayal, the law is reflecting back to you an inner conviction about your own lovability or trustworthiness. If health challenges persist despite your best efforts at self-care, the universe is mirroring back emotional states that are incompatible with vibrant well-being. The ancient wisdom traditions understood this law intimately, though they expressed it in the symbolic language of their time. The Hindu concept of karma is not about cosmic punishment and reward, but about the perfect reflection of consciousness back to itself through experience. The Buddhist teaching of dependent origination recognizes that all phenomena arise in dependence upon the mental and emotional states from which they are observed. The Hermetic axiom, "As within, so without," is a direct statement of the law of reflection in its most concise form. But perhaps no modern teacher understood this law more clearly than Neville Goddard, who built his entire teaching around the recognition that consciousness is the only reality and that the phenomenal world is simply consciousness objectified through the perfect mirror of universal law. Neville recognized that this law operates without exception, without favoritism, without moral judgment. It simply reflects. It simply mirrors. It simply responds to the vibrational signature of your being with experiences that match that signature perfectly. The law of reflection operates through what we might call vibrational magnetism. Your emotional state creates a magnetic field in the quantum realm that attracts people, circumstances, and opportunities that resonate with the same frequency. This is not metaphor, but physics. Every emotion generates what quantum scientists call a bioelectromagnetic field that extends beyond your physical body and interacts with the electromagnetic fields of everything around you. When you consistently broadcast the frequency of gratitude, abundance, and joy, you create a magnetic field that attracts people and situations that vibrate at those same frequencies. When you chronically emit the frequencies of worry, lack, and resentment, you magnetize experiences that reflect those lower vibrational states back to you. The universe has no choice in this matter. It is not making moral judgments about your emotional states, but simply following the immutable laws of vibrational physics. This understanding demolishes one of the most persistent illusions of human consciousness: the belief that you are a victim of external circumstances beyond your control. The law of reflection reveals that there are no external circumstances, only internal states being reflected back to you through the perfect mirror of existence. Every person in your life is reflecting some aspect of your own consciousness. Every situation you encounter is showing you something about your own vibrational signature. Every challenge you face is the universe's way of helping you see what frequencies you are broadcasting that are not aligned with your conscious desires. But here lies the profound gift hidden within this law. If the universe can only reflect what you truly feel at the deepest level, then changing what you feel must change what you experience. The law of reflection is not a prison sentence, but a liberation protocol. It means that you are not powerless in the face of unwanted circumstances. You are the very source of all circumstances through the emotional frequencies you choose to embody. The key to working with this law consciously lies in understanding that it responds not to your surface thoughts or temporary emotional reactions, but to your core emotional identity, the fundamental feeling tone that you carry about yourself and life itself. This core emotional identity is formed through years of experience and conditioning, reinforced through repetition and crystallized through belief. It operates largely below the threshold of conscious awareness, broadcasting its signal continuously while your conscious mind focuses on daily concerns and surface-level goals. Changing your core emotional identity requires what mystics have called the great work, the conscious transformation of your fundamental relationship with existence itself. It demands that you excavate the deepest layers of your psyche, examine the foundational beliefs and feelings that shape your experience of reality, and courageously choose to embody new frequencies, even when external evidence suggests those new frequencies are unjustified. This work cannot be accomplished through mental effort alone. The mind can observe patterns, analyze behaviors, and create strategies for change, but it cannot transform the emotional foundations from which those patterns arise. True transformation occurs at the level of feeling, through the patient cultivation of new emotional states until they become your new natural frequency, your new default vibration, your new core identity in the quantum field of consciousness. The law of reflection operates with such consistency that it can become your most trusted ally in the process of conscious evolution. Every experience becomes feedback about your current vibrational state. Every person becomes a mirror showing you aspects of yourself that need integration or transformation. Every challenge becomes an invitation to evolve to a frequency that no longer magnetizes such experiences. Sacred practice, the reflection inventory. Take a moment to survey the current landscape of your life with the understanding that everything you see is a perfect reflection of your inner emotional state. Look at your relationships, your financial situation, your health, your living environment, your work, your social circle. All of it is the universe showing you the vibrational frequencies you have been consistently broadcasting. Choose one area of your life that you would like to transform. Instead of focusing on changing the external circumstances, ask yourself, what emotional frequency must I be broadcasting to attract these experiences? What feelings about myself, about life, about this particular area would create this exact reflection? Be gentle with yourself as you explore these questions. The goal is not self-judgment, but self-awareness. You are not looking for reasons to blame yourself, but for clues about how to consciously evolve your vibrational signature. Now, imagine the emotional frequency that would naturally attract the experiences you actually desire in this area. How would someone who naturally, effortlessly received what you want to receive feel about themselves? What would their relationship with this area of life feel like? Spend a few minutes cultivating that feeling state, not as something you are pretending to feel, but as something you are remembering how to feel. This is how you begin to work consciously with the law that cannot be broken, not by fighting against it, but by aligning with it, not by trying to change what it reflects, but by changing what you present to its perfect mirror. Chapter 6. through the glass of shadows. In the labyrinthine corridors of consciousness, where light and darkness dance their eternal tango and truth reveals itself through contradiction, there exists a passage that every awakening soul must eventually traverse. This is the journey through the glass of shadows, the sacred pilgrimage through the rejected, denied, and disowned aspects of the self that have been banished to the unconscious realm, yet continue to influence the manifestation process from their exile in the dark. The glass of shadows is perhaps the most mysterious and misunderstood aspect of the mirror field. While most spiritual teachings focus on the light side of manifestation, visualizing positive outcomes, cultivating elevated emotions, aligning with desired realities, the shadow glass reveals that everything you resist, reject, or refuse to acknowledge about yourself continues to broadcast into the quantum field, often manifesting experiences that seem to contradict your conscious desires and frustrate your most sincere spiritual efforts. Every soul carries shadow frequencies, emotional and psychological patterns that were deemed unacceptable by family, culture, or early life circumstances and were subsequently buried in the unconscious mind. These shadow aspects do not disappear when they are denied. They simply operate outside the range of conscious awareness, continuing to influence the vibrational signature you emit into the universe while remaining invisible to your ordinary self-perception. The journey through the glass of shadows requires the courage to meet yourself completely, to encounter not only the aspects of your being that you celebrate and approve of, but also the parts that you have learned to fear, judge, or pretend do not exist. This meeting is not punishment or psychological masochism. It is the essential work of becoming whole, of integrating all aspects of your consciousness, so that your manifestation signals become coherent rather than contradictory. Rebecca Chen learned about shadow manifestation the hard way, through a series of experiences so contradictory and frustrating that they forced her to question everything she thought she understood about spiritual law and conscious creation. For 5 years, Rebecca had been a devoted student of manifestation principles, maintaining a disciplined practice of meditation, visualization, and affirmations focused on attracting her ideal romantic partner. On the surface, Rebecca seemed to be doing everything correctly. She had created detailed vision boards, practiced feeling the love she desired, worked with coaches, and attended workshops, even moved to a new city to create fresh opportunities for meeting someone. Yet instead of attracting the conscious, emotionally available, spiritually minded partner she visualized, Rebecca found herself repeatedly drawn to men who were commitment-phobic, emotionally unavailable, or already involved with other people. The breakthrough came during a particularly difficult period when Rebecca's latest relationship, with a married man who kept promising to leave his wife but never did, finally collapsed in a familiar pattern of disappointment and betrayal. In her desperation to understand why her manifestation practice seemed to be working in reverse, Rebecca began exploring the possibility that some part of her was actually magnetizing these painful experiences through shadow frequencies she wasn't consciously aware of. What she discovered through deep inner work and therapeutic exploration was that beneath her conscious desire for committed love lived a shadow aspect that was terrified of true intimacy and unconsciously attracted unavailable partners as 5-0, a way of maintaining emotional safety. This shadow had been formed in childhood through experiences with an emotionally distant father, and while Rebecca's conscious mind longed for deep connection, her unconscious mind was broadcasting signals of unavailability that could only attract partners who matched that frequency. The glass of shadows operates through what Carl Jung called projection, the unconscious tendency to see in others the qualities that we have disowned in ourselves. When you have rejected certain aspects of your own nature and pushed them into the shadow realm, these qualities begin to appear in your external reality through the people and situations you attract. The universe, following its perfect law of reflection, mirrors back to you through others what you have refused to acknowledge in yourself. If you have shadow aspects around anger, you will attract angry people into your life or find yourself in situations that provoke rage in others. If you carry shadow frequencies around powerlessness, you will magnetize experiences that make you feel victimized or controlled. If you have disowned your own capacity for selfishness, you will repeatedly attract selfish people who seem to take advantage of your generosity. This shadow projection creates what we might call inverse manifestation, experiences that seem to contradict your conscious desires, but actually perfectly reflect the unconscious patterns you are broadcasting from the denied aspects of your psyche. The universe is not punishing you or working against you. It is simply reflecting the complete spectrum of your consciousness, including the parts you would prefer not to acknowledge. The ancient mystery schools understood this principle deeply and built elaborate initiation processes designed to help seekers encounter and integrate their shadow aspects before attempting advanced manifestation work. In the Egyptian mysteries, initiates were required to pass through the Hall of Two Truths, facing both the light and dark aspects of their nature before being granted access to higher teachings. The Greek mysteries included rituals designed to bring unconscious material into conscious awareness through symbolic death and rebirth processes. Modern psychology, particularly the work of Carl Jung and his followers, has rediscovered these ancient insights through the study of the unconscious mind and the individuation process. Jung recognized that psychological wholeness requires the integration of shadow material. The conscious recognition and acceptance of disowned aspects of the personality that continue to influence behavior and experience from their exile in the unconscious realm. But what most psychological approaches miss, and what the ancient mystery traditions understood, is that shadow integration is not merely therapeutic work. It is essential manifestation work. Every aspect of yourself that remains unconscious and unintegrated continues to broadcast its own vibrational signature into the quantum field, often creating manifestations that contradict and undermine your conscious desires. The path through the glass of shadows requires what we might call compassionate self-archaeology, the gentle, patient excavation of rejected aspects of your being, not to punish yourself for having these qualities, but to reclaim the energy and authenticity that has been locked away in the shadow realm. Every quality you have denied in yourself represents not only a source of unconscious manifestation, but also a reservoir of creative power that becomes available when it is consciously integrated. The anger you have pushed into shadow contains the energy of healthy boundaries and passionate advocacy for your values. The selfishness you have rejected holds the capacity for authentic self-care and the ability to receive abundance without guilt. The power you have disowned carries the force needed to create significant change in your life and the world around you. Shadow integration begins with the recognition that everything you see in others that triggers strong emotional reactions, both positive and negative, is showing you something about your own consciousness. The people who irritate you most intensely are reflecting shadow aspects that you have rejected in yourself. The individuals you idealize and put on pedestals are showing you disowned positive qualities that you believe are beyond your own capacity to embody. The practice of shadow work in the context of manifestation involves learning to own all aspects of your emotional and psychological spectrum, not to act out negative qualities, but to reclaim the energy that has been bound up in their denial. When you can acknowledge and accept the full range of your humanity, your capacity for both love and anger, generosity and selfishness, strength and vulnerability, your manifestation signals become coherent and powerful rather than contradictory and self-sabotaging. Sacred practice. Meeting your manifestation shadows. Think of an area of your life where your manifestation efforts seem to work in reverse, where you consistently attract experiences that contradict your conscious desires despite sincere spiritual practice. This might be in relationships, finances, health, career, or any other domain where you feel frustrated by recurring unwanted patterns. Now ask yourself this shadow work question. What would someone have to believe about themselves, or what emotional frequency would someone have to carry to attract these exact experiences? Don't think about this intellectually. Feel into it. What disowned aspect of yourself might be unconsciously magnetizing these situations? Consider the possibility that some part of you, a part you may have learned to judge or reject, actually finds these experiences familiar, safe, or even secretly satisfying in some way. What would that part of you say if it could speak honestly about why it chooses these patterns? Practice holding space for this shadow aspect with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of trying to eliminate or change it immediately, simply acknowledge its presence and ask what it needs to feel safe enough to evolve. Often, shadow aspects are younger parts of yourself that developed protective strategies in childhood and simply need to understand that those strategies are no longer necessary. This is the beginning of shadow integration work, not the elimination of unwanted aspects, but the conscious inclusion of all parts of yourself in the manifestation process. When you can embrace your full humanity, your creative power becomes unified rather than divided, coherent rather than contradictory. Chapter 7. The Golden Thread of Assumption. In the vast tapestry of consciousness, where infinite possibilities weave themselves into the fabric of experienced reality, there runs one golden thread that connects every moment of manifestation, every miracle of creation, every transformation from the invisible realm of potential into the visible realm of form. This is the golden thread of assumption, the fundamental mental-emotional stance you take toward reality that determines not what is possible, but what is inevitable in your personal experience of existence. Assumption is not hope, which acknowledges doubt. It is not belief, which admits the possibility of disbelief. It is not faith, which recognizes its opposite in fear. Assumption is the deeper foundation beneath all these mental activities, the unquestioned acceptance of something as already true, the unconscious taking for granted that shapes every perception and attracts every experience before you are even aware that any choosing is taking place. Every moment of your existence, you are making thousands of assumptions about reality, about yourself, about what is possible and impossible, about what you deserve and what remains forever beyond your reach. These assumptions operate beneath the threshold of conscious awareness, functioning as the invisible software that runs the program of your life. Most people live their entire lives never realizing that their assumptions are choices, never discovering that the very foundations of their reality are malleable, changeable, subject to conscious direction and intentional evolution. The golden thread of assumption reveals itself most clearly in the life of someone like Thomas Hartwell, a 73-year-old man who had spent 40 years believing that his destiny was to die alone and forgotten, just as his father had and his father's father before him. This assumption ran so deep in Thomas's consciousness that he had never even recognized it as an assumption. It simply felt like an unchangeable fact about the nature of his existence. For decades, Thomas lived according to this unconscious assumption, making choices that ensured its fulfillment while believing those choices were simply practical responses to external circumstances. He avoided deep friendships because people always leave anyway. He never married because love doesn't last. He worked in jobs that required minimal human interaction because it's better not to get too attached. Every decision seemed logical and justified, but all were actually serving the deeper assumption that isolation was his inevitable fate. The transformation came when Thomas, facing what appeared to be his final months after a serious health diagnosis, encountered the teachings of Neville Goddard in a book someone had left in the hospital waiting room. As Thomas read Neville's words about assumption being the foundation of all experience, something clicked into place with the force of divine revelation. For the first time in his life, Thomas realized that his isolation was not an external fate, but an internal assumption that had been faithfully reflected back to him by the universe for 73 years. This recognition, that assumption is choice rather than fact, marks the moment when a soul begins to awaken to its true creative power. The golden thread of assumption is always operating, always weaving the fabric of experience, but until you become conscious of this process, you remain subject to assumptions that were formed unconsciously, often in childhood, and reinforced through years of apparently confirming experiences. Neville Goddard understood the mechanics of assumption more deeply than perhaps any spiritual teacher before or since. He recognized that assumption is the bridge between imagination and manifestation, the mental-emotional stance that transforms possibility into inevitability. When you truly assume something, when you take it for granted at the deepest level of your being, you begin to think, feel, and act from that assumption, which creates a vibrational signature that the universe must reflect back as experience. But assumption operates at levels far subtler than conscious thought. You can consciously assume you are wealthy, while unconsciously assuming you are unworthy of wealth. You can mentally assume you are loved, while emotionally assuming you are fundamentally unlovable. The universe responds not to your surface assumptions, but to your deepest, most authentic assumptions, the ones that feel so true you never think to question them. The golden thread of assumption weaves itself through every aspect of your experience, creating what we might call assumption clusters, interconnected webs of related beliefs that reinforce each other and create comprehensive reality maps. If you assume you are unlucky, you will also tend to assume that good things happen to other people but not to you, that life is fundamentally unfair, that you must work harder than others for the same results. These related assumptions create a coherent worldview that generates consistent experiences of struggle and disappointment. Conversely, if you assume you are blessed, you will naturally assume that opportunities flow toward you, that the universe is fundamentally supportive, that you live in a reality where miracles are normal and abundance is natural. These positive assumption clusters create equally coherent experiences of flow, synchronicity, and apparent good luck that others might envy, but which feel completely natural to someone operating from these foundational assumptions. The power of assumption lies in its ability to make the impossible seem inevitable, and the inevitable seem impossible, depending on which assumptions form the foundation of your consciousness. Someone who assumes they are destined for greatness will persist through challenges that would stop someone who assumes they are meant for mediocrity. Someone who assumes love is their birthright will remain open to romance through disappointments that would close the heart of someone who assumes they are fundamentally unlovable. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this principle and developed sophisticated practices for consciously choosing empowering assumptions about reality. The Vedic concept of sankalpa involves making sacred assumptions about your true nature and destiny, then living from those assumptions until they become undeniable realities. Tibetan Buddhism includes practices for assuming the enlightened state until that assumption transforms into authentic realization. Christian mysticism speaks of assuming the Christ nature, taking on the identity of divine consciousness until that assumption becomes lived experience. The practice of conscious assumption requires what we might call assumptive courage, the willingness to take for granted realities that your current circumstances seem to contradict, to base your mental and emotional life on possibilities that have not yet manifested in physical form, to live from assumptions that feel true to your soul even when they seem unreasonable to your mind. This assumptive courage is not blind faith or wishful thinking. It is based on the recognition that all assumptions are creative, that the universe is always reflecting back your deepest assumptions about reality, and that since you must assume something about your life and possibilities, you might as well assume something that serves your highest good and greatest joy. The golden thread of assumption operates through what we might call assumptive consistency, the natural tendency to think, feel, and act in ways that align with your deepest assumptions about reality. When you truly assume you are prosperous, you begin to make decisions from prosperity consciousness. When you genuinely assume you are deeply loved, you start to treat yourself with the care that someone who is cherished would naturally receive. This assumptive consistency creates what appears to be a positive feedback loop, but is actually the natural operation of cosmic law. The universe reflects back not what you consciously desire, but what you unconsciously assume, and as you experience reflections of your assumptions, those experiences tend to reinforce the very assumptions that created them. This is why transformation often feels impossible from within old assumption patterns and can seem effortless once new assumptions take root. Sacred practice, tracing the golden thread. Take a moment to identify one area of your life where you feel stuck in unwanted patterns despite conscious efforts to create change. This might be recurring relationship dynamics, persistent financial challenges, chronic health issues, or any situation that seems to resist your best attempts at transformation. Now, instead of focusing on what you want to change, ask yourself, what would I have to assume about myself, about life, about reality itself, to consistently attract these experiences? Feel your way beneath your conscious desires to the deeper assumptions that might be creating these patterns. Be gentle and curious as you explore these foundational assumptions. You might discover assumptions like, good things don't last, I have to struggle to survive, love always comes with conditions, or I'm not the type of person who gets to have what they want. These are not character flaws. They are simply assumptions that were formed in response to earlier experiences and have been running your life ever since. Now, for the next few minutes, experiment with assuming the opposite. If you discovered an assumption of, "I always struggle with money," try assuming money flows to me easily and naturally. If you found relationships always end badly, try assuming, "I am worthy of lasting love and deep connection." Don't worry about whether these new assumptions feel true yet. Assumptions become true through assumption, not the other way around. Simply practice thinking, feeling, and imagining from these new assumptions, allowing them to color your perception of possibilities and your sense of what is natural and inevitable for someone like you. This is how you begin to weave new golden threads through the tapestry of your reality. Not by fighting against old assumptions, but by consciously choosing new ones and living from them until they become as natural and unquestioned as breathing. Chapter 8. The Fractals of Abundance. In the infinite mathematical poetry of creation, where the same patterns repeat at every scale, from the spiral of galaxies to the curve of a nautilus shell, there exists a sacred geometry that governs the manifestation of abundance in all its forms. These are the fractals of abundance, self-repeating patterns of receiving and giving, expansion and contraction, flow and form that operate at every level of existence, from the circulation of blood in your veins to the circulation of wealth in the global economy. A fractal is a pattern that contains itself, that reproduces its essential structure at every scale of observation. The branches of a tree mirror the structure of its leaves, which mirror the pattern of its cellular architecture, which mirrors the flow of nutrients through its vascular system. Similarly, abundance operates as a fractal pattern in consciousness. The way you receive love in intimate relationships mirrors the way you receive opportunities in career, which mirrors the way you receive inspiration and creativity, which mirrors the way you receive healing in your body. Most people experience scarcity not because abundance is unavailable to them, but because they have unconsciously adopted scarcity-based fractal patterns that reproduce limitation at every scale of their experience. They restrict the flow of love through emotional walls, which creates restriction in financial flow, which manifests as restricted creativity, which results in restricted vitality and health. The fractal pattern of constriction reproduces itself across all dimensions of their life with mathematical precision. Understanding the fractals of abundance reveals why isolated attempts to improve one area of life often fail, while comprehensive shifts in consciousness can transform everything simultaneously. When you change the fundamental fractal pattern of your relationship with receiving and giving, that change propagates through every dimension of your experience, like ripples spreading across the surface of a cosmic lake. Maria Santos discovered this principle during a period when her life seemed to be simultaneously falling apart and coming together in ways that made no logical sense. Within the span of 6 months, Maria's 20-year marriage ended. She lost her corporate job due to downsizing, and her mother was diagnosed with dementia requiring full-time care. By any conventional measure, Maria's life was collapsing into chaos and scarcity. But something extraordinary began to happen as Maria responded to these challenges from a place of radical openness rather than defensive contraction. Instead of closing her heart after her divorce, she remained vulnerable to new love. Instead of desperately seeking another corporate position, she followed her passion for teaching yoga and meditation. Instead of resenting the burden of caring for her mother, she received it as an opportunity to give back to the woman who had given her life. What Maria discovered was that her willingness to remain open and generous in one area of life created openness and abundance in all other areas. As she gave love freely to her yoga students, love flowed back to her through a relationship more beautiful than anything she had experienced in her marriage. As she shared her authentic gifts through teaching, financial abundance appeared through sources she could never have planned or predicted. As she cared for her mother with presence and patience, her own capacity for joy and peace expanded beyond what she had imagined possible. The fractals of abundance operate through what we might call pattern coherence, the tendency for similar patterns to reinforce each other across different dimensions of experience. When you embody the fractal pattern of openness in any area of life, that pattern begins to replicate itself throughout your entire existence. When you practice the fractal pattern of generosity in giving your time, money begins to flow more freely. When you embrace the fractal pattern of trust in relationships, opportunities begin to trust you with greater success. This principle explains why traditional manifestation techniques often produce mixed results. Visualizing financial abundance while maintaining emotional scarcity creates conflicting fractal patterns that cancel each other out. Affirming perfect health while restricting the flow of love and creativity sends contradictory signals to the universe. The fractals of abundance require coherence. The same pattern of openness, receiving, and generous giving must be embodied across all dimensions of life for maximum creative power. Ancient wisdom traditions understood these fractal patterns intimately and built their spiritual practices around the cultivation of coherent abundance patterns. The Hindu concept of dharma recognizes that fulfilling your life purpose creates abundance in all areas because it aligns your entire existence with the natural flow of cosmic creativity. The Buddhist practice of dana, generous giving, understands that generosity creates abundance patterns that reproduce themselves across all dimensions of experience. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below, is actually a description of fractal abundance. The recognition that the patterns governing the cosmic level of existence are identical to those governing the personal level, and that aligning with these patterns at any scale creates alignment at every scale. When you embody the fractal patterns of cosmic abundance in your daily life, you become a walking, breathing expression of the creative principles that govern the universe itself. The fractals of abundance reveal themselves most clearly in the phenomenon of synchronicity, those meaningful coincidences that seem to orchestrate themselves when you are living in alignment with natural flow patterns. Synchronicity is actually the visible evidence of fractal abundance at work, showing you how the same patterns of openness and trust that you embody in one area of life create corresponding openings and opportunities in seemingly unrelated areas. The key to working with fractal abundance lies in understanding that you cannot receive in any area of life more abundantly than you are willing to give, and you cannot give in any area more generously than you are willing to receive. Receiving and giving are not opposite activities, but complementary aspects of the same flow pattern, like the inhalation and exhalation of cosmic breathing. Many spiritual seekers make the mistake of trying to manifest abundance through giving alone, believing that if they are generous enough, the universe will reward them with material prosperity. But fractal abundance requires both sides of the flow pattern. You must be as skillful at receiving as you are at giving, as open to being supported as you are to supporting others, as willing to be loved as you are to love. Similarly, others attempt to create abundance through aggressive receiving, demanding, taking, accumulating without corresponding generosity. But this creates fractal patterns of scarcity disguised as abundance, hoarding patterns that ultimately restrict flow rather than enhance it. True abundance fractals require the elegant balance of receiving and giving that creates sustainable, self-renewing cycles of prosperity. The fractals of abundance operate through what we might call proportional expansion. As you increase your capacity in any area of life, your capacity in all other areas increases proportionally. As you expand your ability to receive love, your ability to receive money expands. As you increase your willingness to share your creative gifts, your capacity for physical vitality increases. The patterns replicate themselves across all dimensions because consciousness itself is fractal in nature. This proportional expansion explains why people who achieve success in one area often find success flowing into other areas seemingly without effort. An artist who learns to receive recognition for their creative work often finds their relationships and health improving simultaneously. An entrepreneur who masters the fractal patterns of business abundance often discovers enhanced spiritual connection and emotional fulfillment. The patterns of flow and openness that create success in any area naturally extend themselves into every other area of experience. Sacred practice, mapping your abundance fractals. Take a moment to observe the patterns of flow and restriction in different areas of your life. Create a mental map with 4 main categories: love, relationships, money, career, creativity, self-expression, and health, vitality. In each category, honestly assess whether your current patterns are more characterized by openness or restriction, receiving or hoarding, generous giving, or fearful withholding. Notice where you find it easy to be abundant and where you tend to contract into scarcity patterns. Now, identify the area where you feel most naturally abundant and generous. This might be your willingness to love your children, your generosity with friendship, your openness to creative inspiration, or your commitment to physical self-care. This area reveals the fractal pattern of abundance that is already operating in your consciousness. For the next week, practice consciously extending this same pattern of openness and generosity into the areas where you have been more restrictive. If you are naturally generous with emotional support but restrictive with money, practice bringing the same open-hearted generosity to your financial interactions. If you are abundant in creativity but scarce in romantic love, extend the same pattern of creative openness into your relationships with potential partners. Watch how changing the fractal pattern in one area begins to shift the patterns in all other areas. This is not magic. This is the mathematical precision of consciousness, operating according to its own geometric laws. You are not creating new abundance. You are extending the abundance patterns that already exist in your consciousness into areas where they have been temporarily restricted. Chapter 9. The Sacred Pause Between Ask and Receive. In the quantum space between desire and manifestation, between the impulse of wanting and the experience of having, there exists a sacred dimension that most souls rush past in their eagerness to transform longing into possession. This is the sacred pause between ask and receive, a timeless moment pregnant with infinite possibility, where the universe organizes itself around your desire and consciousness learns to align with the miracle that is already in motion but not yet visible to ordinary perception. The sacred pause is not delay, though impatient minds interpret it as such. It is not divine testing, though fearful hearts experience it as trial. It is the natural gestation period that all creation requires, the cosmic breathing space where possibility crystallizes into probability, and probability matures into inevitability. Like a seed that must rest in darkness before sprouting toward light, like a symphony that requires silence between notes to create melody, every authentic desire must pass through this sacred pause to transform from mental concept into lived reality. Most people experience this pause as anxiety, doubt, or evidence that their manifestation practice is failing. They fill it with desperate action, frantic affirmations, or the exhausting effort to make things happen through force of will. But this is like shaking an apple tree when the fruit is still flowering, like digging up a garden to see if the seeds are growing. Such impatience does not accelerate manifestation. It interferes with the natural unfolding process through which the universe weaves desire into form. The sacred pause reveals itself most clearly in the life of someone like Jonathan Blake, a composer who spent 3 years trying to write a symphony that would establish his reputation in the classical music world. Jonathan approached his creative goal with all the manifestation techniques he had learned: vision boards featuring Carnegie Hall, daily affirmations about musical success, visualization sessions where he imagined standing ovations and glowing reviews. But the music that emerged from these forced efforts felt hollow, technically proficient but emotionally vacant. Jonathan's symphony contained all the right notes in all the right places, yet it lacked the living essence that transforms sound into soul-stirring art. The more desperately Jonathan tried to manifest his musical breakthrough, the more elusive authentic inspiration became. The transformation occurred when Jonathan, exhausted by 3 years of creative struggle, finally surrendered into what he initially experienced as failure and defeat. He stopped trying to write his breakthrough symphony and instead began simply sitting at the piano each morning, playing whatever wanted to emerge without agenda or expectation. In this state of creative surrender, Jonathan discovered the sacred pause, the timeless space between musical intention and musical manifestation where authentic artistry gestates. During these morning sessions, Jonathan learned to inhabit the pause between striking a key and hearing the note, the silence between phrases where meaning accumulated, the breathing space between movements where the deeper structure of the music revealed itself, and gradually, organically, without force or effort, the symphony began to write itself through him rather than being written by him. The sacred pause operates through what we might call divine timing, the recognition that the universe has its own rhythm of creation, its own optimal moments for bringing possibilities into manifestation. This timing is not arbitrary or capricious, but follows the same natural laws that govern the blooming of flowers, the migration of birds, and the turning of seasons. Every authentic desire has its own perfect timing for manifestation, and aligning with this timing rather than fighting against it allows creation to flow with grace rather than struggle. Neville Goddard understood this principle deeply and taught his students to live in the end not as a technique for forcing manifestation, but as a way of aligning with the natural timing of creation. When you truly live in the end, when you inhabit the feeling state of already having what you desire, you naturally attune to the rhythm at which that reality wants to emerge. You stop pushing and start allowing, stop forcing and start flowing with the current of manifestation that is always moving toward your highest good. The sacred pause requires what we might call pregnant patience, not the passive waiting of resignation, but the active receptivity of gestation. Like a pregnant woman who knows her child is growing within her, even though she cannot see it, souls who understand the sacred pause remain connected to their desires even when external evidence suggests nothing is happening. They carry their dreams like seeds in the fertile darkness of patient faith, trusting that unseen growth is preparing for visible fruition. This pregnant patience is perhaps the most challenging aspect of conscious manifestation because it requires you to maintain emotional alignment with your desires while allowing physical circumstances to unfold in their own time. It demands that you feel wealthy while your bank account appears poor, feel loved while you sleep alone, feel successful while your current situation suggests failure. Such patience is not denial of current reality, but recognition of a deeper reality that is already in motion but not yet visible. The universe uses the sacred pause to orchestrate the countless synchronicities, opportunities, and connections that must align for your desire to manifest in the most beneficial way possible. During this pause, people are being moved into position to help you. Circumstances are being arranged to support you, and resources are being mobilized to serve your highest good. What appears to be delay from your limited perspective is actually precise coordination from the universe's unlimited perspective. Ancient wisdom traditions understood the sacred pause as an essential aspect of spiritual development and manifestation mastery. In Zen Buddhism, the concept of ma, the meaningful emptiness between events, recognizes that the spaces between actions are as important as the actions themselves. Taoist philosophy speaks of wu wei, effortless action that arises from perfect timing rather than forced effort. The Hindu understanding of kala, divine time, acknowledges that there is a cosmic rhythm governing all manifestation that must be honored for creation to unfold harmoniously. The sacred pause also serves as a protection mechanism, preventing you from receiving what you desire before you are truly ready to handle it wisely. Many desires that seem delayed are actually being refined during the pause, not the external manifestation, but your internal capacity to receive and steward what you have asked for. The universe will not give you wealth until you have developed the consciousness to use it constructively, will not bring you love until you are prepared to give and receive it without attachment, will not grant you power until you have learned to wield it with wisdom and compassion. During the sacred pause, your work is not to make things happen, but to become the person who naturally attracts what you desire. This becoming is not effort but evolution, not forcing but flowering into your authentic potential. Every day spent in the sacred pause is an opportunity to deepen your alignment with your desires, to embody more fully the qualities that would naturally magnetize what you want to experience. The pause between ask and receive is also where faith is born, not blind faith that ignores evidence, but mature faith that recognizes patterns beyond the obvious. Faith emerges when you have witnessed enough times the universe's perfect timing in bringing desires to fruition, when you have learned to trust the invisible process of manifestation even when external circumstances suggest nothing is happening. Sacred practice. Embracing the sacred pause. Think of a desire that you have been actively trying to manifest, but which seems to be taking longer than you expected or hoped. Instead of seeing this as delay or failure, recognize that you are in the sacred pause between ask and receive, the cosmic gestation period where your desire is developing the perfect conditions for its emergence. For the next few minutes, practice inhabiting this pause with pregnant patience rather than anxious waiting. Close your eyes and feel into the space between your desire and its fulfillment, not as empty waiting, but as full potential. Imagine this pause as rich, fertile darkness where unseen growth is taking place, where the universe is orchestrating countless details for your highest good. Ask yourself, how is this pause serving me? What am I learning or becoming during this time that I need for the full enjoyment of what I desire? What qualities am I developing that will make me ready to receive and steward this blessing wisely? Practice feeling gratitude for the pause itself, recognizing it not as obstacle, but as protection, preparation, and perfect timing working on your behalf. Allow yourself to rest in the faith that your desire is already yours in the realm of possibility and is making its way to you through the most beneficial pathway available. This is how you transform waiting into sacred work, how you alchemize impatience into trust, how you discover that the pause between ask and receive is not empty space, but pregnant possibility preparing to birth itself into your reality. Chapter 10. Collapsing the Old Reflection. In the vast hall of mirrors that is human consciousness, where every thought creates an image and every feeling projects a reality, there comes a moment in every awakening soul's journey when the old reflections must be consciously collapsed, not through force or violence, but through the gentle recognition that they were only reflections, never the truth itself. This is the sacred art of collapsing the old reflection, the conscious dismantling of reality structures that no longer serve your highest evolution, and the simultaneous opening to new possibilities that have been waiting in the wings of your consciousness. The old reflections are the persistent patterns of experience that seem to define the boundaries of your reality. The recurring relationship dynamics that convince you this is just how love works for you. The financial limitations that appear to prove your worth in the marketplace. The health challenges that seem to demonstrate the inevitability of physical decline. The creative blocks that suggest your artistic gifts are insufficient for true success. These patterns feel so solid, so permanent, so undeniably real that most souls never recognize them as reflections that can be changed through shifts in the consciousness that created them. Every old reflection is held in place by what we might call reflection agreements, unconscious contracts you made with reality, based on past experiences that seemed to prove certain limitations were unchangeable facts rather than temporary manifestations of particular states of consciousness. These agreements function like cosmic legal documents, binding you to patterns of experience until you consciously recognize their voluntary nature and choose to renegotiate the terms of your relationship with possibility itself. The process of collapsing old reflections requires extraordinary courage because it means releasing your attachment to familiar suffering, predictable limitation, and the strange comfort that comes from knowing exactly what to expect from life, even when those expectations are disappointing. There is a peculiar security in limitation, a psychological safety in small dreams and modest expectations that protects the ego from the vulnerability of reaching for magnificent possibilities that might not manifest. Dr. Sarah Williams discovered this principle during the most challenging period of her medical career, when chronic fatigue syndrome forced her to question everything she thought she knew about healing, success, and the relationship between consciousness and physical reality. For 15 years, Sarah had built her identity around being a high-performing physician, working 70-hour weeks, and deriving her sense of worth from her ability to heal others while ignoring the deterioration of her own vitality. When the fatigue became so severe that Sarah could barely function for more than a few hours each day, she found herself trapped in an old reflection that seemed unbreakable. The belief that her value was determined by her productivity, that rest was laziness, that slowing down meant failure. This reflection had been reinforced through decades of medical training and cultural conditioning that equated worth with output and success with sacrifice. The collapse of this old reflection began when Sarah, in her desperation to understand her illness, encountered the work of Dr. John Sarno and other physicians who recognized the connection between emotional patterns and physical symptoms. As Sarah began to explore the possibility that her chronic fatigue was not a fixed medical condition, but a reflection of consciousness patterns that could be transformed, she faced the terrifying prospect of releasing the identity structures that had defined her adult life. The actual collapse of the old reflection occurred not through dramatic revelation, but through a series of small, consistent choices to respond differently to her familiar patterns. When fatigue arose, instead of fighting it or judging it as evidence of weakness, Sarah began to receive it as information about the need for rest and self-care. When the urge to overwork appeared, instead of automatically complying, she paused to ask whether this impulse served her highest good or simply reinforced old patterns of self-sacrifice. Gradually, as Sarah consistently chose new responses to familiar triggers, the old reflection of her identity as someone whose worth depended on endless productivity began to dissolve. In its place emerged a new reflection of herself as someone whose value was inherent, whose gifts were enhanced rather than diminished by proper self-care, whose healing work became more effective as she modeled the integration of professional dedication with personal well-being. Collapsing old reflections is not a violent process, but a gentle one, like allowing a wave to dissolve back into the ocean from which it arose. The key lies in recognizing that even the most persistent patterns are simply waves of consciousness that have been sustained through repetition and reinforced through belief. When you withdraw the energy of unconscious participation from these patterns, they naturally begin to lose their coherence and dissolve back into the field of pure possibility from which new patterns can emerge. The ancient alchemists understood this process and called it solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate. They recognized that transformation requires first dissolving the old forms of consciousness before new forms can crystallize in their place. This dissolution is not destruction, but liberation, the freeing of creative energy that has been bound up in limiting patterns so that it can be reorganized according to higher possibilities. Modern quantum physics offers another lens for understanding this process through the concept of wave function collapse, the moment when infinite possibilities collapse into a single reality through the act of observation. In consciousness, old reflections collapse when you stop unconsciously observing them as fixed realities and begin to see them as temporary patterns that exist only as long as you continue to energize them through unconscious participation. The most persistent old reflections are those that were formed during childhood, when your consciousness was most malleable and impressionable. These early patterns often feel like core truths about reality rather than learned responses to specific circumstances. They might include reflections like, I am not lovable, money is scarce, the world is dangerous, or I must struggle to survive. These patterns feel so fundamental that questioning them can trigger existential anxiety and the fear that dismantling them might dissolve your entire sense of self. But this fear is based on the illusion that you are your patterns rather than the consciousness that temporarily expresses itself through patterns. The truth is that you are the awareness within which all patterns arise and dissolve, the unchanging presence that witnesses the constant flux of experience without being limited by any particular reflection. When you identify with this deeper essence rather than temporary patterns, you can allow old reflections to collapse without losing your sense of self. The process of collapsing old reflections often involves what we might call reality withdrawal, the conscious process of withdrawing your belief, attention, and emotional investment from patterns that no longer serve you. Just as a reflection in a mirror disappears when you remove the object creating it, old patterns of experience dissolve when you stop unconsciously creating them through habitual thoughts, feelings, and responses. This withdrawal must be accompanied by the conscious cultivation of new patterns that are aligned with your desired reality. Nature abhors a vacuum, and consciousness operates according to the same principle. When you collapse old reflections without simultaneously creating new ones, the vacuum left behind tends to be filled by other unconscious patterns that may be even less desirable than the ones you released. Sacred practice. The gentle collapse. Identify one persistent pattern in your life that you recognize as an old reflection, a recurring experience that seems to prove certain limitations about what is possible for you. This might be a pattern in relationships, career, health, finances, or creativity. Instead of fighting against this pattern or trying to force it to change, practice withdrawing your unconscious participation from it. When the familiar thoughts, feelings, or situations arise that usually trigger this pattern, pause and recognize, this is just an old reflection. It has no power over me except what I give it through my unconscious participation. Gently but firmly choose a different response than the one this pattern expects. If the pattern involves reacting with anger, choose curiosity. If it typically generates fear, choose trust. If it usually creates withdrawal, choose engagement. You are not trying to eliminate the pattern through force, but to starve it of the energy it needs to maintain its coherence. Simultaneously, begin to consciously create a new reflection by imagining and feeling into the reality you would prefer to experience. See yourself, feel yourself, imagine yourself living from the new pattern you want to establish. Give this new reflection the emotional energy and conscious attention that you are withdrawing from the old one. This is how old reflections collapse, not through battle, but through the simple shift of consciousness, from unconscious participation to conscious creation, from automatic reaction to deliberate response, from victim of patterns to creator of new possibilities. Chapter 11. The Alchemy of Gratitude. In the sacred laboratory of consciousness, where base emotions are transmuted into golden frequencies and ordinary moments are transformed into extraordinary blessings, there exists one force more powerful than desire, more magnetic than intention, more creative than visualization itself. This is the alchemy of gratitude, not the surface-level thankfulness that politely acknowledges gifts received, but the profound recognition that existence itself is the ultimate gift, and that every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of awareness is a miracle beyond measure. True gratitude is not a response to favorable circumstances, but a fundamental stance toward reality itself, a recognition that the very fact of being alive in a conscious universe is so improbable, so magnificent, so sacred, that no external condition could ever diminish the wonder of your participation in existence. This depth of gratitude transforms the very substance of consciousness. alchemizing ordinary awareness into golden appreciation that becomes a magnet for ever greater experiences of joy, abundance, and miraculous synchronicity. The alchemy of gratitude operates on principles that most spiritual teachings miss because they focus on gratitude as a technique for getting rather than a way of being that transforms the very nature of receiving itself. When gratitude becomes your default frequency rather than your strategic response, you begin to discover that the universe is not a neutral field that sometimes delivers blessings, but a fundamentally generous reality that is constantly pouring gifts into your experience. Gifts that only become visible when consciousness is refined enough to perceive them. This alchemical transformation reveals itself most clearly in the life of someone like Maria Rodriguez, a single mother who found herself facing bankruptcy, homelessness, and the overwhelming responsibility of caring for her elderly mother and 2 young children with no apparent resources or support. By any external measure, Maria had nothing to be grateful for and every reason to feel victimized by circumstances beyond her control. But during the darkest period of her challenges, when Maria was literally living day by day without knowing where the next meal would come from, something extraordinary occurred during her evening ritual of tucking her children into bed. As she looked at their peaceful faces in the dim light, Maria was suddenly overwhelmed not by the problems she faced, but by the profound miracle of their existence. The incredible gift of being the mother of these 2 unique souls, the privilege of witnessing their daily unfolding, the honor of being trusted with their care and protection. This moment of pure gratitude, arising not in spite of her circumstances, but through a deeper recognition that transcended circumstances entirely, became the seed of Maria's transformation. She began to practice what she called miracle hunting, looking throughout each day not for evidence of what was wrong, but for evidence of what was miraculous. The fact that her children were healthy, the reality that strangers sometimes offered unexpected help, the wonder that the sun rose each morning and the earth continued to support them regardless of their financial situation. As Maria's gratitude deepened from technique to genuine recognition, her entire vibrational signature shifted. Instead of broadcasting the frequency of desperate need, she began to emit the frequency of profound appreciation. And the universe, following its perfect law of reflection, began to mirror back experiences that matched this new frequency. Opportunities appeared, resources materialized, and support arrived through channels that defied logical explanation, but perfectly matched the energy of grateful receptivity that Maria had learned to embody. The alchemy of gratitude works through what we might call appreciative magnetism, the natural tendency for grateful consciousness to attract people, situations, and opportunities that are aligned with the frequency of appreciation. This is not because the universe rewards gratitude, but because grateful consciousness naturally sees and receives gifts that ungrateful consciousness overlooks or rejects. A person vibrating at the frequency of gratitude notices the beauty in ordinary moments, recognizes opportunities that others miss, feels supported by synchronicities that skeptical minds dismiss as coincidence. Their appreciative awareness becomes a receiving antenna tuned to the wavelengths of blessing, miracle, and benevolent support that are always broadcasting but only accessible to consciousness that has been refined through the alchemy of recognition. The ancient mystery schools understood gratitude as one of the highest forms of spiritual practice because they recognized its power to transmute the lead of ordinary consciousness into the gold of divine awareness. In the Egyptian mysteries, initiates were taught to see every experience as a gift from the gods, every challenge as an opportunity for growth, every moment as a sacred encounter with divine intelligence expressing itself through form. The Sufi tradition speaks of shukr, a gratitude so profound that it becomes a way of breathing, a constant recognition of the divine generosity that manifests as existence itself. Hindu philosophy includes the understanding that santosha, contentment, gratitude, is one of the fundamental practices that leads to liberation because it dissolves the ego's compulsive need for external validation and reveals the inherent fullness of consciousness itself. But perhaps no teacher understood the alchemy of gratitude more deeply than Neville Goddard, who taught that the feeling of thankfulness is the natural emotional signature of wish fulfillment. He recognized that when you truly feel grateful for something, you automatically inhabit the state of consciousness of someone who already possesses that gift, and this state of possession becomes the vibrational foundation from which the universe creates corresponding external experiences. The deepest level of gratitude practice involves what we might call precognitive appreciation, feeling grateful for your desires before they manifest in physical form. Recognizing that the very fact that you can desire something means it already exists in the realm of possibility and is making its way toward you through the most beneficial pathway available. This precognitive gratitude is not denial of current circumstances, but recognition of a deeper current of reality that is always flowing toward your highest good. The alchemy of gratitude also reveals why many manifestation practices fail to produce lasting results. When gratitude is used as a technique, "I'll be grateful so the universe will give me what I want," it remains transactional rather than transformational. True gratitude is not a trade agreement with the cosmos, but a recognition of gifts that have already been given, starting with the ultimate gift of conscious existence itself. This recognition transforms your relationship with receiving from desperate grasping to graceful allowing. Instead of demanding that the universe prove its generosity by delivering your specific desires, you recognize that the universe has already demonstrated infinite generosity by granting you the gift of life, consciousness, and the capacity to participate in creation itself. From this foundation of profound recognition, specific desires become natural extensions of appreciation rather than evidence of lack. The practice of alchemical gratitude requires what we might call appreciative intelligence, the ability to perceive gifts that are disguised as challenges, opportunities that are hidden within obstacles, and blessings that arrive in forms different than expected. This intelligence develops through the consistent practice of asking not "what's wrong with this situation," but "what gift is hidden within this experience that I haven't yet recognized?" Every difficulty becomes a question: how is this serving my growth? Every disappointment becomes an inquiry: what better possibility is this clearing space for? Every challenge becomes an invitation: what strength is this calling forth from within me? Through this appreciative reframing, consciousness begins to discover that the universe is not randomly cruel or indifferently neutral, but fundamentally supportive of your evolution and awakening. Sacred practice, the gratitude transmission. Begin by placing your hand on your heart and taking 3 deep breaths, allowing yourself to settle into this moment completely. Now, instead of thinking about what you're grateful for, practice feeling gratitude as a pure frequency in your body, a warm, expansive energy that has nothing to do with specific circumstances and everything to do with the miracle of being alive and aware. Let this feeling of gratitude expand from your heart into your entire body, then beyond your body into the space around you. You are not grateful for anything in particular. You are simply radiating the pure essence of appreciation into existence itself. Now, from this foundation of pure gratitude, allow your awareness to notice the countless gifts that surround you in this moment. The miracle of your breath flowing without effort, the wonder of your heart beating without conscious direction, the mystery of consciousness itself, the fact that the universe is aware of itself through your awareness. Expand your appreciation to include the support systems that make your life possible. The sun providing energy, the earth providing stability, the vast web of human cooperation that delivers food, shelter, and countless conveniences to your daily experience. Feel yourself as part of an incredible cosmic symphony where every element supports every other element in magnificent interdependence. This is not positive thinking or denial of difficulties. This is the cultivation of appreciative intelligence that can perceive the fundamental generosity of existence, even in the midst of challenging circumstances. Practice carrying this frequency of gratitude as your default vibration, and watch how it transforms not just your perception of reality, but the reality you attract and create. Chapter 12. The Hologram of Desire. In the vast three-dimensional projection of consciousness that we call reality, where every fragment contains the whole and every part reflects the totality, there exists a phenomenon that reveals the deepest secret about the nature of desire itself. This is the hologram of desire, the recognition that every authentic longing you experience is not a personal want arising from individual lack, but a cosmic impulse expressing itself through your unique consciousness, a fragment of universal creativity seeking to know itself more completely through the specific lens of your human experience. Like a hologram where every piece contains the complete image and damage to one section does not destroy the whole picture, every desire you feel contains within it the entire pattern of your soul's evolutionary journey. Your longing for love reflects your soul's desire to remember its essential unity with all existence. Your passion for creative expression mirrors the universe's impulse to know itself through infinite forms of beauty. Your drive for abundance echoes the cosmos's fundamental tendency toward expansion and ever greater complexity. Most people experience desire as evidence of what they lack, proof of their separation from fulfillment, and motivation for seeking completion through external acquisition. But the hologram of desire reveals that every authentic longing is actually evidence of what already exists in the realm of consciousness. A calling from a possible future self that has already achieved integration, a magnetic pull from a version of reality where your deepest needs are not only met, but transcended through their fulfillment. Understanding the holographic nature of desire transforms the entire manifestation process from desperate seeking to joyful recognizing, from effortful trying to graceful allowing, from individual will-forcing reality to conform to personal preferences, to cosmic intelligence expressing itself through the unique prism of your consciousness. When you recognize desire as divine impulse rather than personal need, you begin to serve your longings rather than being enslaved by them. This profound shift in perspective revealed itself to David Chen during a period when his artistic career seemed to be dissolving despite years of dedicated effort and genuine talent. David had spent a decade as a professional photographer, building a reputation for capturing the hidden beauty in urban landscapes, but the rise of digital technology and social media had changed his industry so dramatically that his work no longer seemed commercially viable. For months, David raged against these changes, clinging desperately to an artistic identity that no longer fit the evolving marketplace. His desire to continue creating beautiful images felt like a personal need that the world was cruelly denying him, evidence of his failure to adapt and thrive in changing circumstances. The more he fought to preserve his old identity, the more frustrated and bitter he became, until his love for photography itself began to sour under the weight of his desperate attachment. The transformation came when David, in a moment of exhausted surrender, stopped trying to force his old artistic identity to work and instead asked a different question. What if my desire to create beauty is not about me at all? What if this longing is the universe wanting to know itself through my unique way of seeing? This simple shift from personal need to cosmic service opened a door in David's consciousness that changed everything. Instead of trying to recreate his old success, David began following his desire to capture beauty wherever it led him, regardless of commercial viability. He started photographing homeless encampments, finding unexpected dignity in difficult circumstances. He documented community gardens growing in abandoned lots, revealing nature's persistent creativity in urban decay. He captured moments of human connection in public spaces, showing the love that exists everywhere when consciousness is refined enough to perceive it. As David served his desire rather than being driven by it, his work began to attract attention from sources he had never considered. Social service organizations wanted to use his images to humanize homelessness. Environmental groups commissioned him to document urban sustainability projects. Museums began displaying his photography as art that bridged social consciousness with aesthetic beauty. By following the holographic pattern of his desire rather than trying to fulfill it through old strategies, David discovered a creative path that served both his individual expression and collective healing. The hologram of desire operates through what we might call fractal fulfillment, the recognition that authentic satisfaction comes not from getting what you want, but from serving what wants to emerge through you. Every genuine desire contains within it the complete pattern of its own fulfillment, but this pattern can only be accessed when you approach desire as sacred responsibility rather than personal entitlement. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this principle and built their spiritual practices around the cultivation of desire as divine service rather than ego gratification. The Sanskrit concept of Ichcha Shakti, the power of divine will, recognizes that all authentic desire arises from cosmic intelligence and seeks to express itself through individual consciousness. The Kabbalistic understanding of tikkun, the repair of the world, suggests that personal desires are actually cosmic assignments to heal and complete creation through individual service. The holographic nature of desire explains why forcing and manipulating rarely lead to lasting fulfillment. When you try to fulfill desire through personal will alone, you only access the surface fragment of the holographic pattern rather than the complete design that includes the highest good of all concerned. True fulfillment requires surrendering personal attachment while maintaining passionate engagement, serving your desires with complete dedication while remaining unattached to specific outcomes. This paradox of passionate detachment is perhaps the most subtle aspect of working with holographic desire. It requires that you care deeply about what you create while caring nothing about whether you receive credit for the creation. It demands complete commitment to your vision while total flexibility about how that vision manifests. It calls for fierce dedication to your gifts while profound humility about your role in their expression. The hologram of desire also reveals why some longings persist despite repeated attempts at fulfillment, while others dissolve the moment they are satisfied. Desires that arise from personal ego needs, for recognition, security, control, or validation, are like surface scratches on the hologram that disappear when examined closely. But desires that emerge from soul purpose and cosmic service are like the complete image encoded in the holographic plate. They become more vivid and complete the more deeply they are explored and expressed. Every authentic desire contains what we might call evolutionary DNA, genetic information about the next stage of your consciousness development and the specific gifts you are here to contribute to the collective awakening. When you learn to read this evolutionary DNA through deep listening and intuitive sensitivity, you begin to understand that your desires are not random personal preferences, but cosmic instructions encoded in the language of longing. The practice of holographic desire requires developing what might be called desire discernment, the ability to distinguish between authentic soul longings and synthetic ego needs. Authentic desires feel expansive, energizing, and naturally generous. They enhance not only your life, but contribute to the well-being of others. Synthetic desires feel contractive, depleting, and inherently selfish. They seek to fill personal holes rather than express creative fullness. Sacred practice. Reading the hologram. Choose one of your most persistent, authentic desires, something you have longed for consistently over time, and that feels connected to your deeper purpose rather than temporary ego needs. Close your eyes and contemplate this desire not as something you lack, but as something seeking to express itself through your unique consciousness. Ask yourself, if this desire is cosmic intelligence seeking expression rather than personal need seeking satisfaction, what might it want to create through me? How might fulfilling this desire serve not only my individual growth, but contribute to the healing and evolution of the collective? Imagine that your desire contains complete holographic information about its own fulfillment. The people you need to meet, the skills you need to develop, the steps you need to take, the service you need to provide. Instead of trying to figure out how to get what you want, practice feeling into how to serve what wants to emerge through you. Notice how this shift from getting to giving, from personal need to cosmic service, changes your relationship with the desire itself. You may discover that as you serve your desires, rather than being enslaved by them, they begin to fulfill themselves through you in ways more beautiful and beneficial than you could have planned or imagined. This is the secret of the hologram of desire. When you recognize your longings as cosmic impulses and dedicate yourself to their service rather than their satisfaction, you become a conscious collaborator in creation rather than a desperate consumer of experiences. Chapter 13. Becoming the Mirror. In the ultimate revelation of consciousness, where the seeker and the sought dissolve into the same eternal presence, and the dreamer awakens to discover they were always the dream itself, there comes a moment of recognition so profound that it transforms not just how you see reality, but what you fundamentally are within it. This is the moment of becoming the mirror, the recognition that you are not separate from the cosmic reflective field that surrounds you, but are that field, individualized into human form, yet never separate from the infinite consciousness that projects itself as the entire universe. Becoming the mirror means recognizing that the boundary between inner experience and outer manifestation is an illusion of perspective, like imagining that the surface of a lake is separate from the water beneath it. You are not in the universe having experiences reflected back to you. You are the universe reflecting itself through the unique prism of individual consciousness, creating the entire theater of personal reality through the divine play of cosmic self-awareness. This understanding dissolves every victim story, eliminates every complaint about external circumstances, and reveals the ultimate creative responsibility that comes with conscious existence. When you truly become the mirror, you recognize that everything in your reality, every person, situation, challenge, and blessing is you. Meeting yourself in infinite disguises, playing all the roles in a cosmic drama that has only one actor wearing countless masks. The journey to becoming the mirror is perhaps the most challenging and liberating passage any soul can undertake, because it requires releasing every comfortable illusion about being a separate self-subject to external forces and accepting the awesome creative responsibility that comes with recognizing your true nature as consciousness itself, temporarily focused through human experience, but never limited by it. This transformation revealed itself to Dr. Rachel Martinez during what she later recognized as a spiritual emergency disguised as professional crisis. As the head of pediatric oncology at a major teaching hospital, Rachel had spent 15 years witnessing the suffering of children with cancer and the heartbreak of families facing impossible choices. Despite her dedication to healing and her reputation for extraordinary compassion, Rachel found herself increasingly bitter, angry at God, and resentful toward a universe that seemed to randomly inflict terrible suffering on innocent beings. The breaking point came when Emma, a 7-year-old girl who had become like Rachel's own daughter during months of treatment, lost her battle with leukemia despite every medical intervention available. As Rachel held Emma's mother while she sobbed with grief, something cracked open in Rachel's consciousness. Not just her professional composure, but her entire framework for understanding existence itself. In the weeks that followed Emma's death, Rachel fell into what she recognized as a dark night of the soul, questioning everything she believed about healing, meaning, and the nature of a reality that could contain such apparent cruelty. It was during this period of spiritual dissolution that Rachel encountered the teachings of various mystics who spoke of consciousness as the only reality and all experience as the reflection of that consciousness back to itself. Initially, Rachel resisted these teachings because they seemed to suggest that somehow Emma had created her own cancer, that her parents had manifested their tragedy, that suffering was simply the result of incorrect consciousness. But as Rachel explored these concepts more deeply, she began to understand something far more profound and compassionate than victim-blaming spiritual materialism. The revelation came not as intellectual understanding, but as direct experience during a meditation when Rachel felt her individual identity dissolve into something vast and limitless. In this expanded state, she experienced herself as the consciousness within which all experiences arise, not just her personal experiences, but Emma's experience, her parents' experience, the experience of every patient she had ever treated. From this perspective of unified consciousness, Rachel understood that she was not a separate being witnessing others' suffering, but was the very awareness through which all suffering and healing were experienced. She was Emma experiencing cancer, and she was Emma's mother experiencing grief, and she was herself experiencing the call to serve healing in the world. All of it was one consciousness, exploring itself through infinite perspectives, learning about love through the contrast of loss, discovering compassion through the experience of pain. This recognition did not diminish Rachel's grief over Emma's death or make her suffering somehow less real or meaningful. Instead, it revealed that her grief was actually cosmic love, feeling the preciousness of each individual manifestation of consciousness. Her anger at injustice was cosmic justice, recognizing the need for greater healing in the world. Her dedication to helping sick children was cosmic compassion, expressing itself through her unique skills and position. Becoming the mirror transforms suffering from senseless victimization into sacred service, challenges from random cruelty into conscious curriculum, and healing from fixing what's broken into remembering what was never damaged. When you recognize yourself as the consciousness within which all experiences arise, every situation becomes an opportunity for that consciousness to know itself more deeply and express itself more completely. The ancient Vedantic teaching, Tat Tavam Asi, Thou art that, points to this ultimate recognition that the consciousness looking out through your eyes is the same consciousness that creates and sustains everything you perceive as separate from yourself. The mystic Sufi poets spoke of the beloved and the lover being one, recognizing that the divine love they sought was actually their own deepest nature, seeking to know itself through the experience of separation and reunion. Neville Goddard understood this principle when he taught that man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us, and we in him. He recognized that individual consciousness is not separate from cosmic consciousness, but is cosmic consciousness individualized, which means that everything you imagine with feeling must manifest as experience, because imagination is the very creative power of the universe expressing itself through your awareness. Becoming the mirror requires what we might call identity liquefaction, the willingness to let go of every fixed idea about who you are and what you are capable of becoming. When you truly recognize yourself as consciousness itself rather than the temporary contents of consciousness, every limitation you have accepted becomes negotiable. Every boundary you have believed becomes permeable. Every impossibility you have assumed becomes simply another invitation for consciousness to demonstrate its infinite creative potential. This identity liquefaction can be terrifying to the ego because it means releasing the illusion of being a small, separate, limited being subject to forces beyond your control. But it is simultaneously liberating because it reveals that you are the force. You are the creative intelligence that has been shaping your reality all along, and once you become conscious of this power, you can begin to wield it with intention, wisdom, and love. The process of becoming the mirror often involves what mystics have called spiritual vertigo, the disorienting experience of discovering that everything you thought was outside yourself is actually inside yourself, that every person you have loved or feared is actually an aspect of your own consciousness meeting itself, that every situation you have experienced is actually your own creative intelligence, exploring possibilities through the drama of human experience. This vertigo is temporary, lasting only until consciousness stabilizes in its new understanding of itself as the source rather than the subject of experience. Once this stabilization occurs, what initially felt disorienting becomes profoundly empowering. Every challenge becomes an opportunity for creative problem-solving. Every relationship becomes a chance for deeper self-understanding. Every experience becomes a sacred encounter with your own infinite nature, exploring itself through finite forms. Becoming the mirror also reveals why conventional manifestation techniques often fail or produce mixed results. When you approach manifestation from the perspective of being a separate being trying to influence external reality, you are working against the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. But when you recognize yourself as the mirror, as the consciousness that creates all reflection, manifestation becomes as natural as dreaming, as effortless as imagining, as inevitable as consciousness exploring its own creative potential. From this perspective, you don't attract things to yourself. You recognize that everything is already within yourself as potential, and you simply choose which potentials to actualize through focused imagination and sustained feeling. You don't change external reality. You shift your internal state, which is the only reality there is, and external circumstances rearrange themselves to match your new internal configuration. The practice of becoming the mirror requires developing what we might call omnipresent empathy. The ability to recognize yourself in every person you encounter, to see your own consciousness looking back at you through every pair of eyes you meet, to understand every interaction as a conversation between different aspects of your own infinite nature. This omnipresent empathy does not erase individual responsibility or suggest that personal actions don't matter. Instead, it reveals that taking responsibility for your individual expression is actually taking responsibility for the quality of consciousness that you contribute to the collective field of awareness. When you heal limiting beliefs in yourself, you heal them in the collective. When you embody greater love and wisdom, you make those qualities more accessible to everyone you encounter. Sacred practice, the mirror recognition. Sit quietly and allow your awareness to expand beyond the boundaries of your physical body. Begin to recognize that your consciousness is not contained within your skull, but is the open space within which all experiences arise. Thoughts, sensations, perceptions, emotions, everything you normally think of as inside and outside yourself. Now, bring to mind someone in your life who triggers strong emotions in you, either positive or negative. Instead of seeing this person as separate from yourself, practice recognizing them as an aspect of your own consciousness meeting itself. What quality do they embody that you have either rejected or idealized in yourself? How might they be serving as a mirror to show you something about your own nature? Expand this practice to include situations in your life that feel challenging or problematic. Instead of seeing these circumstances as happening to you, recognize them as expressions of you, as your own consciousness, creating experiences that serve your growth, learning, and evolution. Ask yourself, if I am the consciousness creating this situation, what am I teaching myself through this experience? This is not about taking blame for external circumstances, but about taking creative responsibility for your internal response to every situation. When you truly become the mirror, you recognize that changing your internal state is the most powerful way to influence external circumstances, because internal and external are simply different perspectives on the same unified field of consciousness. Practice seeing yourself as the consciousness within which all experiences arise, rather than the person to whom experiences happen. This shift in identity, from being the character in the dream to being the dreamer of the dream, is the ultimate recognition that transforms you from victim of circumstances to creator of reality. Chapter 14. The Echo Beyond Time. In the infinite chambers of consciousness, where past and future collapse into the eternal now, and every moment contains the seeds of all possibilities, there reverberates an echo that transcends the linear progression of time itself. This is the echo beyond time, the recognition that every thought you think, every feeling you feel, every choice you make sends ripples through the quantum field of consciousness that extend both backward and forward through what appears to be the sequence of temporal experience, creating resonances that shape not only your future but mysteriously influence what you perceive as your past. The echo beyond time reveals one of the deepest mysteries of consciousness, that the present moment is not a moving point, traveling along a fixed timeline, but the creative nexus where all possibilities exist simultaneously, and where the power of conscious choice can literally restructure the entire fabric of your life story. When you truly understand this principle, you realize that healing trauma doesn't just prevent future suffering. It actually transforms the energy signature of past events, changing their meaning and impact on your current reality. Most people experience time as a linear prison, believing that past events have fixed their identity, that future possibilities are limited by previous choices, and that the present moment is simply the inevitable result of cause and effect change that began long ago. But the echo beyond time reveals that consciousness operates outside the laws of linear causation, that the past is as malleable as the future, and that every moment of awareness offers the opportunity to literally rewrite your entire life story from a place of expanded understanding and conscious choice. This profound truth revealed itself to Michael Thompson during a transformative period when he chose to confront the childhood sexual abuse that had shaped his entire adult life through patterns of shame, intimacy, fear, and self-destructive behavior. For 43 years, Michael had carried the trauma like a heavy stone in his chest, convinced that those early violations had permanently damaged his capacity for love, trust, and healthy relationships. Traditional therapy had helped Michael understand the psychological impacts of his trauma and develop coping strategies for managing his triggers and reactions. But it wasn't until Michael encountered teachings about the quantum nature of time and consciousness that he began to explore the possibility that healing could extend beyond managing symptoms to actually transforming the energetic signature of the original trauma itself. The breakthrough came during a deep meditation when Michael experienced what he later described as temporal fusion, a state of consciousness where past, present, and future collapsed into a single moment of infinite possibility. In this expanded state, Michael found himself able to visit the traumatic scenes of his childhood not as the helpless victim he had been, but as the conscious, powerful adult he had become. From this place of adult consciousness, Michael was able to offer his child self the protection, love, and wisdom that had been absent during the original trauma. But more importantly, he recognized that his current understanding of resilience, healing, and the indestructible nature of consciousness could actually travel backward through time to infuse those painful moments with new meaning and energy. As Michael sustained this temporal healing work over several months, something extraordinary occurred. Not only did his current symptoms of trauma begin to dissolve, but he started to remember aspects of his childhood that he had completely forgotten. Moments of joy, creativity, and natural resilience that had been overshadowed by the trauma narrative. It was as if by healing the energetic wound in the present, he had restored access to positive memories and experiences that had always existed but had been obscured by the dominant trauma pattern. The echo beyond time operates through what quantum physicists call retrocausality, the possibility that future events can influence past events, that consciousness can send information backward through time, and that the observer effect extends not only forward into manifestation, but backward into the reinterpretation of history itself. While this concept challenges conventional understanding of causation, it aligns perfectly with the mystical recognition that consciousness transcends the limitations of space and time. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this principle and developed sophisticated practices for what we might call temporal healing. The Hawaiian Ho'oponopono tradition recognizes that healing limiting beliefs and emotional patterns in the present can transform their effects throughout the ancestral line, both forward into future generations and backward into past generations. Tibetan Buddhism includes practices for dedicating the merit of current spiritual work to the benefit of all beings across all times, recognizing that consciousness exists in an eternal now that encompasses all temporal experiences. The Kabbalistic understanding of tikkun, the repair of the world, suggests that conscious beings can literally heal breaks in the fabric of reality that occurred in what appears to be the past, understanding that from the perspective of infinite consciousness, all healing happens in the eternal present and extends its benefits throughout all dimensions of space and time. This temporal transcendence explains many phenomena that conventional psychology struggles to address. Why do some people experience spontaneous healing of trauma without processing specific memories? Because consciousness can resolve energetic patterns without needing to revisit their original formation. Why do some individuals seem to transform their entire life story through a single moment of insight or awakening? Because that moment of expanded awareness can literally rewrite the meaning and impact of everything that came before it. The echo beyond time also illuminates the mystery of why certain spiritual practices seem to heal not just the individual, but their entire family system. When someone develops the consciousness to break generational patterns of abuse, addiction, or limitation, that healing energy doesn't just prevent those patterns from continuing into the future. It actually transforms the energetic legacy of those patterns throughout the family lineage, often resulting in spontaneous healing or positive changes in family members who had no conscious knowledge of the spiritual work being done. Working with the echo beyond time requires developing what we might call temporal sovereignty, the recognition that you are not a victim of your history, but the author of your story, with the power to rewrite that story from any moment of expanded consciousness. This sovereignty doesn't deny that painful events occurred or minimize their impact, but it recognizes that the meaning, energy, and influence of those events can be transformed through present moment awareness and conscious choice. The practice of temporal sovereignty often involves what mystics have called redemptive remembering, the ability to revisit past experiences from your current level of consciousness and offer them new interpretation, healing energy, and integrated wisdom. This is not about changing historical facts, but about transforming the energetic signature and psychological impact of those facts through the power of conscious awareness. Every moment offers the opportunity to send healing energy backward through time to every version of yourself that has ever suffered, struggled, or felt alone. Every instant of love, wisdom, or joy that you experience in the present becomes a gift that travels through time to comfort and strengthen every past self that needed exactly what you now have to offer. Similarly, every moment allows you to receive wisdom, strength, and love from your future self, the version of you that has already learned, grown, and transcended current challenges. This future self exists not in some distant timeline, but in the realm of possibility that surrounds every present moment, ready to share its gifts with your current consciousness when you learn to access the echo beyond time. Sacred practice. Sending love through time. Close your eyes and allow your awareness to expand into the spacious present moment where all times exist simultaneously. From this eternal now, begin to sense the presence of every version of yourself that has ever existed. The child you were, the adolescent you were, every age and stage of your development. Choose one version of your past self that you know struggled with challenges similar to what you're facing now, or that needed the wisdom and strength you have developed since then. Allow yourself to connect with this past self across time, not to change what happened, but to offer the love, understanding, and guidance that were needed then. Send this past version of yourself the energy of everything you have learned since then. Your resilience, your wisdom, your capacity for self-love are untrade, your understanding that challenges are temporary and growth is eternal. Feel this healing energy traveling backward through time to comfort, strengthen, and enlighten your past self. Now, practice receiving wisdom and energy from your future self. The version of you that has already resolved current challenges, integrated present lessons, and embodied the qualities you are now developing. Allow this future self to send you the energy of completion, mastery, and joyful realization that you are already moving toward. This is how the echo beyond time works. Every moment becomes an opportunity for temporal healing, for sending love backward to past selves who needed it, and receiving wisdom forward from future selves who have already learned what you are now learning. Time becomes not a linear prison, but a multidimensional playground where consciousness can heal, learn, and grow across all possible timelines simultaneously. Chapter 15. The Stillness That Moves Worlds. In the deepest heart of creation, where the dance of form and emptiness creates the endless symphony of existence, there lies a power so profound that it makes hurricanes seem gentle and earthquakes appear as whispers. This is not the power of force or effort, not the strength that comes from struggle or the energy that arises from striving. This is the stillness that moves worlds. The recognition that the greatest creative force in the universe is not action, but presence, not doing, but being, not the movement of consciousness, but the awareness within which all movement occurs. The stillness that moves worlds is the ultimate paradox of manifestation. The understanding that the most powerful way to create change is to become so completely present, so absolutely still, so perfectly aligned with the source of creation that the universe itself moves through you rather than being moved by you. In this stillness, you discover that you don't make things happen. You allow things to happen through the perfect receptivity of consciousness that has remembered its essential nature as the source of all happening. This stillness is not the absence of activity, but the presence of such complete alignment with the creative force of existence that every action becomes effortless, every decision becomes obvious, and every manifestation becomes as natural as breathing. It is the stillness of the center around which all spinning occurs, the eye of the storm that remains perfectly calm while directing the movement of vast energies, the silent awareness that observes all phenomena while being disturbed by none. Most people approach manifestation as a process of doing, visualizing, affirming, taking action, making things happen through effort and will. But the deepest teachings of conscious creation reveal that manifestation is actually a process of becoming so still, so present, so aligned with the source of existence that creation flows through you with the same effortless precision that causes flowers to bloom and stars to shine. This ultimate understanding revealed itself to Elena Vasquez during what she later recognized as the completion of a spiritual journey that had lasted 37 years. Elena had spent decades studying every manifestation technique, working with numerous spiritual teachers, and applying herself to the disciplined practice of conscious creation with dedication that bordered on obsession. She had experienced many successes along the way, manifesting her ideal home, attracting her soulmate relationship, creating financial abundance, and healing chronic health issues that doctors had declared incurable. But despite these achievements, Elena carried a subtle sense of exhaustion from constantly trying to manage and direct the creative process, a feeling that manifestation required perpetual vigilance and effort that prevented her from ever truly relaxing into the flow of life. The transformation came during a meditation retreat when Elena, exhausted from years of spiritual effort, simply stopped trying to accomplish anything and allowed herself to sink into complete stillness. Not the practiced stillness of meditation technique, but the organic stillness that arises when consciousness stops trying to be anywhere other than where it already is. In this natural stillness, Elena experienced what she later described as the breathing of the universe, the recognition that existence itself inhales and exhales through the constant dance of manifestation and dissolution, that every moment of creation arises from stillness and returns to stillness, and that her individual consciousness was not separate from this cosmic breathing, but was the very awareness through which it occurred. From this place of ultimate stillness, Elena understood that she had never actually created anything through her efforts. Instead, she had simply learned to align with the creative force that was always flowing, to remove the obstacles that blocked the natural expression of abundance, love, and joy through her consciousness, and to become transparent enough that the universe could create through her without resistance or distortion. The stillness that moves worlds operates through what we might call effortless efficacy, the recognition that the most powerful actions arise not from personal will, but from perfect alignment with the creative intelligence that animates all existence. When you learn to act from stillness rather than agitation, from presence rather than anxiety, from trust rather than fear, your actions become infused with a power that far exceeds what personal effort could accomplish. This principle is reflected in the ancient Chinese concept of Wu Wei, action that arises from non-action, doing that emerges from non-doing, movement that is born from perfect stillness. The Taoist masters understood that the highest forms of creativity and manifestation occur when individual will aligns completely with the Tao, the underlying principle that governs all natural processes and phenomena. Similarly, the Vedantic understanding of nishkama karma, desireless action, recognizes that the most effective activities are those performed without attachment to results, arising from a place of stillness and surrender that allows cosmic intelligence to flow through individual expression without the interference of personal agendas or desperate needs. Jesus taught this principle when he said, "I of myself can do nothing. It is the Father within me that does the works." Recognizing that the most powerful manifestations arise not from personal effort, but from allowing divine intelligence to express itself through human consciousness that has become perfectly transparent and receptive. The stillness that moves worlds requires what we might call productive surrender, the ability to remain completely relaxed and receptive while being fully engaged and responsive to whatever wants to emerge through your consciousness. This is not passive waiting, but active allowing, not laziness, but the highest form of efficiency, not giving up, but giving over to the creative force that knows how to manifest your desires far more elegantly than your personal mind ever could. This productive surrender often feels counterintuitive to minds that have been conditioned to believe that results require effort, that success demands struggle, and that manifestation happens through force of will applied to resistant circumstances. But the stillness that moves worlds reveals that resistance comes not from external circumstances, but from internal tension, and that when consciousness becomes perfectly still and aligned, external circumstances arrange themselves with miraculous ease and precision. The practice of cultivating this stillness begins with the recognition that you are not the doer of your actions, but the awareness within which all doing occurs. Every breath you take, every heartbeat in your chest, every thought that arises in your mind happens without your conscious control or effort. The same intelligence that manages these countless unconscious processes is available to manage the manifestation of your conscious desires when you learn to get out of its way. Learning to access the stillness that moves worlds requires developing what mystics have called dynamic receptivity, the ability to remain open and available to infinite possibility while being grounded and present in current reality. This receptivity is not mental but embodied, not conceptual but experiential, felt as a quality of relaxed alertness that pervades your entire being. In this state of dynamic receptivity, inspiration arises effortlessly, opportunities appear synchronistically, and solutions emerge organically to challenges that previously seemed insurmountable. You find yourself consistently in the right place at the right time, saying the right words, meeting the right people, making the right choices without having to figure out what right means through mental analysis. The stillness that moves worlds is ultimately the recognition that consciousness itself is the creative force of the universe, and that when individual consciousness aligns completely with cosmic consciousness, manifestation becomes as natural and effortless as the sun rising each morning. You don't make the sun rise through effort or will. You simply align with the cosmic rhythms that are always operating and allow their perfection to express itself through your experience. Sacred practice. Entering the creative stillness. Find a comfortable position where you can sit or lie down without distraction. Begin by noticing that your breath is breathing itself, your heart is beating itself, and your body is maintaining countless complex processes without any conscious effort from you. Allow this recognition to help you relax into the understanding that you are not the doer, but the witness of most of what occurs through your system. Now, bring to mind a desire or goal that you have been trying to manifest through effort and will. Instead of thinking about how to make it happen, practice sinking into complete stillness around this desire. Not the stillness of giving up, but the stillness of complete trust that the intelligence that manages your breath and heartbeat also knows how to bring your desires into manifestation. Feel yourself letting go of the need to figure out, control, or force any outcomes. Instead, become so still and present that you can sense the creative intelligence that is always flowing through existence, looking for transparent, receptive channels through which to express itself. From this place of profound stillness, ask the simple question, what wants to move through me now? Then listen, not with your mind, but with your entire being for the subtle impulses, inspirations, and inclinations that arise from this deeper intelligence. This is how you access the stillness that moves worlds, not by stopping all activity, but by allowing all activity to arise from the source of creation itself rather than from personal effort and will. In this stillness, you discover that you are not separate from the creative force of the universe, but are that force individualized into human form, yet never disconnected from the infinite intelligence that creates and sustains all existence. Conclusion: the infinite mirror. As we reach the completion of this sacred journey through the mirror field of existence, you stand at the threshold of a recognition so profound that it transforms not only how you see reality, but what you fundamentally are within the cosmic dance of creation and discovery. You have traveled through the glass between worlds, learned the secret language of feeling, remembered the frequency you forgot, and discovered how to collapse old reflections while becoming the mirror itself. But now, in this moment of completion that is simultaneously a moment of beginning, the ultimate truth reveals itself with crystalline clarity. There is no mirror field separate from yourself. There is no cosmic reflection occurring outside of your consciousness. There is only you, infinite, eternal, creative consciousness, exploring yourself through the magnificent illusion of separation, playing all the roles in a divine drama that has only one actor wearing countless masks. The universe is not reflecting back your feelings because it is separate from you and chooses to respond to your emotional signals. The universe reflects your feelings because the universe is your feelings projected outward through the prism of space and time and experienced as objective reality by the very consciousness that is creating it moment by moment through the power of awareness itself. You are the one looking through every pair of eyes you have ever met. You are the consciousness experiencing itself through every person who has loved you, challenged you, or taught you something about the infinite nature of your own being. You are the awareness that creates every sunrise you witness, every piece of music that moves you, every moment of beauty that takes your breath away with its perfection. This is not metaphor or spiritual poetry. This is the ultimate physics of consciousness, the fundamental mathematics of existence itself. What you call your individual life is actually infinite consciousness, exploring one unique perspective among countless perspectives, learning about love through the experience of relationship, discovering creativity through the expression of unique gifts, understanding compassion through encounters with suffering and healing. Every challenge you have faced was consciousness teaching itself about resilience. Every joy you have experienced was consciousness celebrating its own creative capacity. Every person you have loved was consciousness recognizing itself across the apparent boundaries of separate forms. Every moment of growth, healing, and awakening was consciousness evolving its understanding of its own infinite potential. The mirror field is not something you work with, it is something you are. You don't use the law of reflection, you are the law of reflection in action. You don't attract experiences to yourself. You are the consciousness within which all experiences arise, and you choose which experiences to focus upon and thus make real through the creative power of your attention and feeling. From this ultimate perspective, manifestation is revealed not as getting what you want, but as choosing what you experience. From the infinite array of possibilities that exist simultaneously in the quantum field of pure potential, healing is not fixing what is broken, but remembering what was never damaged. Abundance is not acquiring what you lack, but recognizing what you have always been. And in this recognition, something profound relaxes in the center of your being. The seeking ends not because you have found what you were looking for, but because you realize you were never actually lost. The struggle dissolves not because your problems are solved, but because you recognize that you are the consciousness within which all problems and solutions arise. The fear transforms into love not because circumstances become safer, but because you remember that you are the safety you have always been seeking. You are home. You have always been home. You are the home that consciousness makes within itself when it chooses to focus its infinite awareness through the beautiful, temporary, magnificent lens of human experience. The mirror field will continue to reflect back exactly what you feel, exactly what you are, exactly what you choose to embody in each moment of your existence. But now, you know the secret that changes everything. You are not a separate being subject to the reflections of an external mirror. You are the mirror itself, exploring its own infinite creativity through the exquisite play of forgetting and remembering its essential nature. Stand in this recognition, live from this understanding, create from this truth, love from this realization. And watch as the mirror field responds to your awakening with reflections of ever greater beauty, abundance, and joy, not because you have finally learned to manipulate the universe, but because you have finally remembered who you are within it. The journey continues, but now you walk as what you have always been, consciousness itself, temporarily focused through human form, endlessly exploring the infinite possibilities of creation through the sacred mirror field that is your own divine nature reflected back to itself in all its magnificent, eternal, unlimited glory. Welcome home, beloved. Welcome to the truth of what you are. Welcome to the recognition that the seeker and the sought, the dreamer and the dream, the mirror and the reflection have always been one consciousness, celebrating its own inexhaustible creativity through the beautiful dance of existence itself. If these words have stirred something in the depths of your soul, if this journey has awakened recognition of truths you have always known but temporarily forgot, I invite you to like this transmission, share your insights and revelations in the comments below, and subscribe to join our growing community of awakening souls who are remembering their true nature as consciousness itself. This is not the end of our journey together, but the beginning of an endless exploration into the infinite creativity of awareness itself. Until we meet again in the sacred mirror field of existence, may you walk as what you are, not a separate being seeking completion, but wholeness itself, temporarily focused through the magnificent prism of human experience, creating reality through the simple, profound act of being conscious. The mirror field awaits your next creative choice. What will you choose to reflect?